we start the...
Sure, yeah, let's tell him to go ahead.
All right. Welcome to the final match of the Dominion Online Championship. 389 players entered the single elimination tournament. Now only two remain, Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Hello, everyone. I am Akuchi, and I'm joined in commentary by top Dominion players Mick Senok and Breppert.
Hello. I'm Breppert.
Mick, what can you tell us about these players?
Did we lose Mick?
Breppert, what can you tell us about these players?
Did you start already?
Yeah. You just had to ask the question.
Well, I'll tell you, Dan Brooks is very, 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 very good at Dominion. I think he's probably the scariest player for me to go up against. And he just plays very cleanly. He's very considered in his decisions and his play in general. One thing he's very good at is thinking about upcoming shuffles and how that impacts, what he knows about his future shuffles impacting his current decisions. It's one thing I notice him doing very well. And Mercury, I don't have much experience, but I think you've played him a little more, Breppert, haven't you?
Yeah, I've played him a good amount of times, and he's a good Dominion player. He's one of the top players. He's probably the top Japanese player, and I think I certainly fear Dan more, but there is plenty of fear of Mercury and respect for him as a player.
And apologies for missing the beginning. I had deafened myself because I was trying to listen to the stream to check our volumes. So that's why I missed.
I see.
Whatever you guys said before then.
Yeah, so these two players are some of the highest seeds entering the tournament. Dan Brooks was the number 2 seed, and these were seeded by the leaderboard ranking on Dominion Online. Dan Brooks tends to jump between 1 and 2 seed, him and Mick Senok, and Mercury was the number 4 seed entering this tournament. So very high-skilled players.
Yeah, we should see a lot of good Dominion where the decisions come down to more small things rather than big picture decisions where there's just blowouts.
Yeah.
We're about to begin. The players are going to take turns starting each game, and the match will end once a player wins 3.5 or more games, where the 0.5 comes from ties. And there will be a 7th deciding game in the event that it's a 3-3 tie after 6 games.
All right, we got our first board. Also, in the comments, if you hate this background, let us know, and we'll change it to anything except the rebuild one.
Absolutely. So it's interesting, as Aku was mentioning. Well, I guess we should talk about the board. Is probably more important right now. So.
Their only draws Watchtower and Jack of all trades. There's a couple villages. There's not really real payload. How would you guys attack this board?
Well, it's tough because there's not trashing really, or not trashing that decreases your deck size. There's a way around it, but it's not even worth mentioning. So you're really not going to get your deck small, and you're not getting rid of any coppers. So that does limit how much you can build if you want to try and build really.
There also isn't much in the way of attacks, so there's not a whole lot to do if a player plays a more straightforward money-ish get provinces approach.
Mm-hmm. And that the money-ish approach, what is it? Just Jack with some ventures and crowns?
Yeah, something like that. Although I guess it's worth pointing out that there are enough decent cards on the board that it's pretty easy to get your fairgrounds up. There are actually enough cards worth buying, I suppose, between Jack, Border Village, Venture, Crown, Haven, Watchtower potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
Nomad Camp is reasonable too.
Yeah, this could be whether you want to go for 4 VP or 6 VP Fairgrounds might be one of the more important decisions on this board.
Yeah. So it's possible. I mean, it's also possible if you have clean draws and get your golds and your ventures early to just run down the provinces too. That's not a question. So,
So Dan Brooks is going first. He's got a 3-4 split. And actually, I cannot see Mercury's hand, unfortunately. So one of the other commentators is going to have to.
He
help
also
me out
has
there.
a 3-4.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to be able to play either something that's money based or something that's a little more complicated, because the more complicated thing gives you a few more options, and it's not that much worse than just playing like a straight money type deck.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely splash in the various other kingdom cards for sure, but they don't change the nature of the deck much. It still looks like trying to hit 8 and 6 basically.
Right. I think you don't really take Border Village something on 6 too much here. You probably take gold and try and run down the provinces. For the most part, you might take a few Border Villages.
Yeah, they're not. They don't. The Border Village doesn't do much, right? But if on a 6, if you are thinking you need to angle to the fairgrounds, it's fine to take the Border Village in one of the 5s.
Yeah, there are plenty of 5s. I mean, Crown and Venture are both reasonable cards to have.
So that won't hurt you necessarily to take the Border Village, though it won't be doing a lot for you.
So Dan and Mercury both open with a silver, and I think a Jack of all trades. Yep, that's what Dan gets.
Yep.
Both of those signal money approach.
Surprising so far. It's interesting. A lot of times the discussion around the tournament format being this single elimination thing is that it's too luck based. But here at the end we have the number 2 seed and the number 4 seed. So I think it's pretty clear that it doesn't take too many games in a match before the better player is going to win, or the person who plays better in the match pretty often.
Yeah, there's certainly luck in a long tournament like this, but you have to be a really good player to win like 7 matches in a row or 6 matches in a row, which is what you have to do to make it this far in this tournament.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely possible to be eliminated due to some bad luck, but if you make it to the end, you're going to be a strong player who played pretty well through the course of the tournament.
I'm wondering if there's going to be any opportunity in the early going where mission makes sense. With Jack of all trades, like you're probably getting as many silvers as you want. If you don't hit 5, maybe it makes sense to go on a mission.
I think if you know you have Jack coming in your next hand, and you hit 4, I think that's certainly reasonable.
Yeah, but that's about the only use case for it.
Right. Yeah, the only thing you're really doing on a mission turn is playing Jack.
Right. Or, your bureaucrat if you have one of those ever. But...
Oh, yeah, we'll see.
I'm a staunch defender of bureaucrat. It's not good here.
Yeah. Mercury also opens with the Jack.
I try to be a staunch defender of cards that are really good, but people don't talk about as being the absolute best. That way, it's a lot safer than being a staunch defender of something like bureaucrat.
Well, I just love when bureaucrat's good.
Where it deserves every criticism leveled at it.
It's not every criticism. Like it can be talked about like you should just never buy it, which is almost safe. But
I mean, it's pretty safe.
I've won a couple of games by Princeing or inheriting bureaucrat recently, but that's probably because I just want to do that more than that being good.
So yeah, Dan drew his Jack, and he's got 4 here. There's nothing super attractive here. You can get another silver. Haven seems okay.
There's bureaucrat.
He could get his second Jack. He can take up the double Jack, typical 2 Jacks early, and just go from there.
Yeah, I think double Jack is perfectly reasonable here. You have a little bit of village support, and what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, potentially Haven, if there's any opportunity for that, also can perhaps separate your jacks. Although there's a bit of anti-synergy between Haven and Jack of all trades,
Yeah, it
where if
depends
you
what
have a
turn.
card, set aside, if you saved
Yeah.
a jack because you had collision, then that jack's not going to draw on the next turn.
Dan
So
does
Dan does
get
go for a second jack, and he's going to have another 4-coin hand coming up here. We'll see if he takes the opportunity to go on a mission.
Yeah, he's pretty likely to have Jack in a hand, so it wouldn't be crazy.
But does it do a lot for him, I guess, is the question.
Yeah, it triggers a shuffle, and it can turn an estate to a silver instead of just buying a silver.
Right.
But there's a very real chance that it does nothing.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of cycling, and it could cost you a buy, I guess.
Mercury does go for the mission on turn 3, so that he can play his jack.
So
and
there he
gets,
knows,
estate
or he
trash.
knows unless he bottom decked it, that he's got a shot at doing that.
If you do bottom deck it, it's almost losing.
Yeah,
Dan does go for the mission, and now he's going to see a lot of treasure, unfortunately. But he does get an estate trash in. So.
And he's got his jack down there too. His other one.
Yeah, so that worked out really nice for Dan.
And Mercury's got 6 coins, and will pick up a gold.
But Mercury's jack misses, so Dan is way ahead in terms of silver and trashing here.
Yeah, so Dan's thinking now whether or not he wants these cards, the jack, estate, or jack and 3 copper to miss a shuffle, but he prefers to keep the silver so he can get a 5 cost. And we'll see what he picks up. Picks up a crown.
Yep, crown's pretty good. You can double play the jack, and or use it to double at least a silver. So I can see picking up way more crowns than ventures, at least early on.
The Mercury has a not great turn, just picks up a silver. Mercury still with just 1 jack. We'll see if he adds a second jack at some point.
To me, the venture looks better than the crown, but maybe not the first one. But I wouldn't take too many crowns over ventures here.
Yeah, I suppose the ventures are often going to be worth golds, while the crown is just has the advantage of being nice if you collide it with jack early on.
So Mercury does pick up a venture with his first 5. Meanwhile, Dan put a gold into his deck. So these decks are going to be pretty close to at the point where they can buy provinces.
Yeah, I think Dan can green as soon as possible here. Mercury might need to build a little bit more. But with these dollar hands of 7, they don't really have a choice.
That's the first province, Mercury on turn 7. Seven coins, usually sad. This game, no exception.
Yeah, games this
This
simple.
is an especially sad 7. Well, it's not as bad with Fairgrounds, but it's still pretty sad.
Yeah, do you think makes sense to dive
It's not so
Fairgrounds?
sad to have 7 here. But I'm sorry, what was that, Prepper?
Do you think it makes sense to dive into Fairgrounds yet, or do you go on with some Border Village venture before going?
I would still take another treasure.
Yeah, I would expect with the decks these guys are building, 4 VP Fairgrounds is the best they can hope for. And
yeah, it would take.
They'll be like, it'll be Fairgrounds dancing kind of when they can't buy provinces. So Dan
they're
gets
not
his
even
first
really
province.
in a great position for 10 uniques at this stage, since they both only have one of the 5s, right? Or does Dan have both of the 5s treasures?
Nope, just one of each.
So they each both just have one of those.
Yeah.
They're quite a number of card gains away from 10 uniques.
It'll require an extended end game for that to be relevant. So an unfortunate 7-coin hand for Dan here. Something else to point out, Mercury still has an estate left, which can definitely matter in a game like this for two reasons. The 1VP tiebreaker, if it's mostly just a province game, and secondly, as a unique for Fairgrounds.
Yeah.
So I think we would expect to see Mercury not trash the estate if he collides it with his jack.
And he does have
Which
estate
he
advantage
has
jack
it in
here.
hand right now. And it's at the end. He's going to trigger a shuffle, so he doesn't even really get that much benefit from trashing it.
So it looks like Dan is making a play towards powering up his Fairgrounds, getting Border Village and Venture there, adding 2 uniques and reasonable cards.
So Dan's sitting at 7 uniques now.
So Fairgrounds,
that's
Duchy
that's
will
not counting Fairgrounds. So.
Yeah.
And Dan has a really good deck at this point too, at least as far as this board goes.
All right, Mercury puts another gold in. Yeah, I think Mercury would definitely be in a strong position if he could get 4 provinces before Dan gets 3, obviously.
So Dan picks up a duchy there, so that takes him to 8 uniques. So he just needs to take an opportunistic nomad camp is pretty reasonable at some point. That would give him the 10th. Once he gets Fairgrounds as well.
And Mercury's got a $7 hand coming up here. And Dan will get 8 here.
Province for Dan. So Mercury leads 3 provinces and 1 estate to Dan's 2 provinces and 1 duchy.
Mercury will have quite a hard time getting to 10, I think. Well, I guess he can Border Village Crown, but they'd still be a few cards shy.
Yeah, it'll take
No, he has the estate. I forgot his estate as well, so that's not true. Yeah, I mean a Border Village in range of 10. So.
Yeah, I haven't been counting. If he has to just take Border Village Crown instead of Border Village Duchy, that makes it way harder because then he has to take a whole turn where he doesn't score points, which can be meaningful in this sort of game.
Yeah, Mercury needs to still, if he wants 4-point Fairgrounds, he needs to pick up a Border Village, a Duchy, Fairgrounds, and either Crown or Nomad Camp.
Yeah, that makes it pretty tough. That's a lot of gains.
So yeah, Mercury trying to decide between Duchy or Gold or Border Village, presumably. Well, the Border Village can gain the Duchy.
You could also be deciding about whether to try to go Fairgrounds now and then pull it back later, although that doesn't make much sense.
Ooh, yeah, and that's what Mercury did. So a 2-point Fairgrounds there.
And this kind of opens up Dan taking the provinces.
Yeah, interestingly, if Dan takes the province here, which he does, now they have a tie score. But
Dan is first player, so Mercury can take the.
Yep.
And Mercury has 8 in hand, so that should
do it. Game. Dan, Dan has a hand that probably could hit 8 as well, but
it almost definitely will.
Yeah. Though he would have wanted to play it a little differently if he was going for 8 there. I think. I don't think you crown. I think you crown the Venture.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But he's done.
I guess he's going to consider whether he's going to cycle or not here with the Venture, but it won't ultimately matter.
Yeah, so game one's going to go to Mercury, and winning as second player in a game like this is definitely something that is going to put a spring in Mercury's step.
Yeah,
Very nice
Mercury's
outcome.
earlier shuffles were sad, but he was able to hit 8 pretty reliably, kind of a turn before Dan was. And
Yeah,
that was a
Dan's eights came in the bottom half of that last shuffle there, or towards the end of the shuffle, and um,
Yep.
Mercury's came sooner, so he just had the points lead the whole time.
For those just tuning in, you're watching the Dominion Online Championship Finals between Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Mercury leads 1-0 in this best of 7 match. I am Akuchi, and joined in commentary by top Dominion players Mick Senok and Breppert.
Hi, I'm Mick.
Hi, I'm the one who's not Mick. Another
All right.
board here that's limited with what you can do.
Though you do build here, I'm pretty sure. Between Tactician and the opportunity to get prizes.
Yeah, you'd really like Trusty Steed here because actions are the hardest thing to come by. And there's a bunch of good terminals to play.
So there's this Vault Tactician thing, which is not bad here. Replaces pretty nice for upping estates to advisors. Of our tournaments, though the advisors can of course misbehave as well.
I mean, replace is going to be strong in general because it's the only way to trash, right?
Yeah.
So replacing, gold into province and potentially province into province is just going to be a nice attack.
I think it seems pretty clear like you have to open tournament silver here because vassal, you're so limited on terminal space. I don't think vassal's worth it, and tournament silver is probably the best other way to hit 5.
Yeah, I would not touch a vassal here.
Is there any merit to opening talisman, looking to gain, 2 tournaments and then a lot of advisors?
I think I'd rather pick up a talisman later because I'd really rather have a replace in my deck than like 2 advisors or 2 tournaments.
I don't tend to get talisman unless I'm just feel totally compelled to. In general, I don't like it for just sort of double pickups on 4s that much, because you can just buy the 4s, and the 4 itself usually does something nice for you right away. So I don't always like delaying it. Like here, if you delay a tournament, you're missing out on that economy, right? That could get you a 5.
Ooh, Dan
Right.
does open with a vassal. It is one of his favorite cards. We'll see what he can do with it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty
I
bad.
don't feel like there's the terminal space here.
Does you really want to play tacticians and vaults and maybe bridge if you can?
But
Mercury follows and gets a vassal. So I guess we're not going to see different openings here, assuming, Dan gets a tournament.
yeah, I'm not feeling the vassal. I mean, I rarely do, but especially without trashing here. And I feel like you do want the Mercury
Okay,
has a
so
really excellent shuffle.
Mercury gets a tactician as his first 5, perhaps
Yeah,
hoping to spike early province.
and you can't see this, but he has $5 again, and he's flipping an estate. So
Nice. Dan
he
gets another
has
tournament.
he has essentially as good a first shuffle as he can get off his opening.
Yeah, that
He
was
gets a
excellent.
replace. And Dan, on the other hand, gets 4 twice in a row. It looks like his vassal is missing the shuffle.
And his silver. He has the unfortunately named Golden Sombrero, where both his opening cards miss.
He opened with
he doesn't have
tournament.
he doesn't have
Oh.
a silver.
Oh, I see.
He opened tournament vassals.
So Dan has 3 tournaments now. So usually
That's one of those.
I feel 2 is a sweet spot. So 3, you're definitely at risk of getting blocked a lot once your opponent has a province.
This can be a scary thing because it can just shut you down if they get lucky a turn or two on blocking.
Yeah, and with the Tactician, Mercury will have that province before long.
Yeah.
Mercury gets a second tournament here.
And also, Mercury has not collided his replace and Tactician, so he's going to get to play the Tactician here and then still play the replace the following turn and most likely be able to do a gain in play if he finds one of his tournaments. By top
or even
decking.
A vassal.
Or that's right, even the vassal. So he's got 3 outs as far as two more cards to draw.
So Dan finally gets a Tactician of his own. Mercury plays his Tactician, looking at a big turn coming up. Dan can get another 5 cost here.
Mercury needs to find out an estate, but he's got a pretty good shot at estate to 4 and getting a province in this next hand.
I think a really, really excellent shot.
Yeah, I wonder if these players were thinking about replace when they opened with vassal. That is, it only works on a Tactician turn, but it is a nice little synergy.
Yeah, it can work out. I don't think it's worth it, but it certainly can work out.
So he does find an estate. So he has already got the province in hand. We'll see if he gets tournament or advisor. It's reasonable for Mercury to take the 3rd tournament since he has such a somewhat dominant, I guess, position in that he's already getting the province here. So Mercury, I think I would have preferred a 3rd tournament to the advisor in that situation.
Yeah, you just really want to make sure you collide because he collides anyway.
But also you can just shuffle well. That's the most important Dominion skill.
I mean, the advantage of the advisor is it does accelerate faster. So Mercury was able to pick up, replace a state into advisor, and then get the province, and now he's got this nice tournament province collision.
Yeah, it looks very good for Mercury. I would have taken the steed there, but
the steed is far more important. I agree.
But to be fair, when your opponent doesn't have a province yet, the first pick is not the biggest deal.
And also the followers is going to make it harder for Dan to get a province of his own, although with the Tactician turn.
Since he had the Tactician down.
Yeah, and Mercury knew he wasn't going to be able to block Dan because his province is already gone.
Yeah, I think the biggest time to take followers is to try to suffocate your opponent and make them have 3-card hands where they just can't get a province, but that doesn't apply here.
So Dan might be thinking about what the implications are if he triggers this shuffle, because it has all 3 of his tournaments in it. But he goes ahead and does it. He desperately wants to find his replace.
Yeah, I don't think he really had a choice, even though it's a pretty bad shuffle to trigger.
But he does not find the replace, and so he's not going to have collision in his next hand.
So Mercury, with this Tactician play, will probably get next prize. I mean, he could miss still, but
we'll see if Dan does have 2 buys and 11 coins, so we'll see if he takes advantage of the second buy.
I can't believe that another vassal is good. It just looks like it gets in the way.
Dan picks up a province and a silver.
Yeah, silver's fine. The vassal would have been crazy. I think we may see advisor punish him here. Well, it's hard to say before the Tactician draws, but the advisor may just reveal the exact card you want to pair up your...
Yeah, it's easy to discard tournament when the advisor reveals it. Province, on the other hand, is a little bit... depends on the situation.
But he had a very nice draw. So
goes for a points play where he trashes the curse, gets an estate, and gives a curse back.
So Mercury's getting steed here.
Yeah, this is.
There was also
Oh, and
another
even
nice interaction
though-
here with Vassal and tournament
Right,
blocking.
because Dan, blocked the tournament, which top decked the Trusty Steed, but Mercury was able to play it with the Vassal and find his follower. So this is a very large lead for Mercury in this game, perhaps insurmountable.
Yep.
It would have been. It would really help Mercury to have a vault in this deck, but
Yeah, I missed the second tactician that Mercury picked up. That's awkward in his deck right now, but if he can play followers a bunch, that's gonna just really set Dan behind.
yeah, and Dan's turn is stopped here. So this, I mean, they'll have to play it out, but Mercury is certainly in a winning position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is there even a prize that you like here as Dan?
I mean, he can take Princess, but I don't think it'll be a huge deal.
Yeah, good on a tactician turn, the Princess, but otherwise pretty underwhelming.
If I were Mercury here, I would actually replace the Vassal into a vault.
Yeah, that seems reasonable, if not really good.
For a number of reasons, because it gives you a shot of finding tactician here, and of course, then you can do the double tactician vault thing. Yeah, getting an advisor is okay, but really, I would have loved to see a vault game there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at this point, there's not a lot of prizes that are very good, especially for Mercury, because Mercury's playing this double tactician thing when he can.
Though he can, I mean, I guess he can stop. I mean, it's not too hard to convert the double tactician deck into a deck with golds using
Interesting.
replace.
That's weird that Dan chose to discard Mercury's tactician and not the followers.
Yeah, I guess he just wants to. I mean, he knows the attack isn't doing so much to him, though.
The discard attack, yeah.
The discard part, the cursing, of course, still hurts.
Yeah, so Mercury picks up 2 vaults, so it looks like he's onto that plan of using the vault discard to make his double tactician turns work.
Mm-hmm. Mercury does have a lot of terminals, but it can kind of work out because he's expecting Dan to discard a lot of them.
And he has ways to utilize them, right? He can play a vault and just discard them, and they're at least worth a buck, or he can replace them,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay too. So this I think they've sort of convinced me with their Vassal play with the replace.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
I didn't really see it at the start, but it's been really nice.
So this time, Dan discards the followers.
Yeah.
And lets the Mercury keep the vault.
I think the Vassal's much better if you end up being the player who has Mercury's deck with the village in it compared to Dan's.
But Mercury couldn't play the vault and the tactician together. So yeah, that seems fine. So looks like Dan picks up Diadem here.
Yep, Dan just has to try and province out and hope that Mercury's deck doesn't come together, which is somewhat reasonable.
Yeah, Province Silver for Dan. I mean, if you can block the tournaments as Dan, that helps definitely. But not so this turn.
Yeah. So despite the followers, the score disparity doesn't really exist right now. I mean, once Mercury. Oh, this was nice to get the double vault reveal. That's really fortunate.
Yeah. So
he's gonna have he's gonna have a lot of money this turn.
Does Mercury have the second tactician in hand?
Yes, he does. Yeah. And he has Trusty Steed as well. So he has Steed, Vault, Vassal, Tactician.
Yeah, his hand's sweet.
I guess he probably won't end up playing the Vassal, but everything else will get played. and he'll have a good chunk of money. I don't know if he'll have enough to pick up a 4 as well as the province, but his deck might be that big. It's going to be close to it. It ought to be that big.
Yeah, I think he
right?
can hit 12.
Yeah, because 2 advisors plus a vault plus another vault plus a steed is like 5 extra cards. So he should be at 13.
These vaults are going to give Dan a small opportunity to improve his hand, which is pretty bad with 2 estates.
This is one of these things that always cracks me up. I don't know why he discards the first vault, unless that was really bizarre to me, that play there that he just made.
Yeah.
Maybe he already knew the money was good, but
yeah, this is a nice 13 coins. So Mercury grabs a province immediately and picks up an advisor, which makes sense. He already has the 2 vaults, and he only needs 1, but with advisor draw, he doesn't want to be denied the vault. Seems like he could be denied the other tactician, though.
There certainly is denial that can go on. The advantage that Mercury has is that he gets 10-card hands, at least for the time being.
Well, and if they deny it, right, your turn's still good. You know, it doesn't. It's not, your next turn's not good, but the current one is still fine.
So Dan replaces a copper into an estate, try to get a 2-point play there, and buys a 4th tournament.
I guess you can just try and get lucky and block and get a lot of duchies. Because Dan's in a pretty losing position.
No advisors for Dan, so he's not interested in trying to draw a lot.
Yeah, because he can't do as much with his turns, because he doesn't have the trusty steed. So, and he's getting followers a lot too. So the hand size difference is like 10-3, or by the end of things, it's like 15-3 on a lot of these turns.
I wonder if Mercury should consider doing province replacements here. I guess it doesn't really. I guess his deck is just better, so it doesn't make much sense to do that.
Yeah, he's going to replace the estate, get another advisor, set up his next turn. Doesn't get to play a tactician that turn.
And take a duchy now. It still looks pretty rough for him.
Sad princess.
So here now, Mercury's turn is going to most likely be garbage.
Dan goes ahead and piles out the estates. Doesn't want to give those free points to Mercury, I guess. And with 16 cards in the draw pile, Dan's hoping to not see those estates.
I think Dan is pretty unlucky here that he's replacing Tactician Collide. If he's able to play the Tactician and get a big replace turn, he might be able to steal something.
So Mercury's final draw there was extremely fortunate.
Yeah.
His reshuffle top decked a Tactician for him that he got to play.
Yeah.
Which really saves the at least 2 or 3 turns from being awful.
So Dan replaces his tactician into a duchy, just trying to keep the points lead.
Yeah. But his turns won't do anything, right?
Yeah, Dan doesn't have any money or cards that are any good.
Yeah, if Dan had more replaces, then he'd be in better shape because he could just try to replace province into province or something and just keep ahead on the points.
And these advisors are not very good for Mercury at this point.
Yeah. I mean, they were always going to be pretty suspect, just with no good way to get rid of the coppers.
So Mercury can guarantee province here by top decking a bridge or a navigator, or a vassal or another vassal. So he could province duchy this turn. Which I assume he will do.
Yep, picks up the duchy.
So he's just got to top deck something that gives money, and he'll have 8 or 9. 9, I guess.
Unless
8 with the bridge, but
he does go for the navigator.
So he's going to trigger
yeah,
that
but
shuffle.
he's just gonna keep those.
Yeah, that's a real good hand he's got next turn.
But Dan has more or less killed. Dan's got like 2 turns. That'll be 2 or 3 turns more. That'll be more or less nothing.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much all Dan can do is collide tournaments with provinces.
Yeah, he can get the duchies, but
well, I mean, yeah, because his replace is in his discard right now.
This is also already a guaranteed province hand, I think, for Mercury.
It is. Yep.
So that should be completely safe for him there. I guess it opens up a potential tie with a really lucky hand for Dan, but oh no, it doesn't, because Dan didn't buy a state. So the estates are gone.
Yep.
Never mind.
And Dan doesn't have any replaces left in his deck.
I think by playing the tournament there, Mercury took away his guaranteed province, right?
Yeah. No, he had the advisor first, so his hand size was big.
Oh,
enough
he'd
for
already
Vassal.
played. Okay, never mind. Yeah, his hand was big enough. Never mind. So Mercury can safely take 8 here and then just wait till he draws his replace, more or less.
Mm-hmm. And with the tactician going down here, this turn he won't get it, but the next turn he will. But if Dan had a lucky hand, he could have taken it, but Dan does not.
Yeah. It would have taken quite a shuffle.
I don't even know if it would have been possible. Yeah.
Well, it was he got a clean shuffle. He has diadem and silver and stuff, so he has $8, but
it would have taken a really, really nice top decking.
Yeah. But Dan did a good job staying in points range here. Mm-hmm. Although Mercury has a bit of an... It's not easy to build here, even if you get the big prize lead, because the decks are going to be messy no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, some smart play from Mercury, spotting the double tactician with vault payload and using replace and vassal intelligently.
And also really nice draws. I mean, he had 5/5.
That helps too.
And he had 5/5 and Dan had 4/4. So
yep.
But Mercury takes another game.
Yeah, Dan wanted to play the deck that Mercury played there. There's no doubt in my mind, but did not have the ability to, given how the early game shuffles went.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Reminder, you are watching the Dominion Online Championship Finals between Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Mercury now leads 2-0 in this best-of-7 match. I am Akuchi, and joined in commentary by McSennock and Breppert.
Hi.
Dan Brooks will be starting Game 3.
Really good 5-2.
Continue to not have villages.
Yeah, this should be Count Tunnel. I mean, this should be a pretty easy tunnel board, right?
Yep, it's Count Tunnel. You probably play with one gear.
Get maybe some troves if you get 5 later.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can see a trove once you've gotten thin with Count Tunnel. You want to get thin and do Count Tunnel first, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there may not come a time where the trove makes sense, but it looks quite nice for the 5/2.
Yeah, Seller can also activate Tunnel as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you guys jumped to this Count Tunnel thing. I've never probably played with those 2 cards before.
It's good. It's a good strategy just in 2 cards, because you can get thin to start. And you can discard the tunnels with Count and still use Count for other useful things. So it is a good sort of money rush type strategy. I think it's better than playing just like a straight up gear money or a gear amulet money. But I think it's still good to incorporate at least gear and maybe amulet into Count Tunnel. but the
Yeah, I see
goal.
the gear helping quite a bit because you want to collide the count and tunnel when possible.
Mm-hmm. And gear is just
Uh,
good for helping you hit 8 a lot as the game goes on too.
yeah, Cellar seems like it would be a good 2 cost for Dan to open with, better than Pearl Diver, I think.
Yeah, Cellar seems better than Pearl Diver, which is basically saying
Ooh,
that it seems better than nothing.
but Dan
So
opens
Dan
with
goes
Treasure Trove.
I don't agree with that.
I have
Um,
seen Dan do this before. He really likes playing a treasure trove money if he can get early treasure troves. It's going to be competitive. I don't know if it's better.
I mean, he might not see the count tunnel interaction, and certainly Treasure Trove gear is strong. So Dan opens with Treasure Trove and Cellar, and Mercury opens with Gear and Silver. The Gear Silver opening implies that Mercury really wants to hit 5 in this second shuffle, and we'll see if he picks up a count or a Treasure Trove with that 5. Presumably, if he picks up Treasure Trove, we will see a Gear as the other purchase in that opening hand.
Yeah, if you play the treasure trove money, you want a lot of gears, and by a lot I mean like 5, potentially if you have several treasure troves because your deck balloons really fast. You just want to play a gear every turn,
yeah,
and you've
and
got
you
a
don't
lot
have
of
to buy
money.
treasures. So
Hmm. Yeah, you don't need silver.
yeah, that's. I would have opened count, but I don't have a lot of experience with Trove, so
Trove
I,
is
I wouldn't be.
tremendous in money.
I mean, I have played
But
it some. I
But
just
right,
gear in
don't.
particular, because
You know.
gear helps you smooth out those purchases. So Dan picks up a gear, and then Mercury picks up a treasure trove. So they're doing a similar strategy, coming from different starts. We'll see if Dan picks up a second treasure trove here.
Like I've played Trove money games. It's a mushy kind of board, right? So there's not.
right. No one thing's
You
going to
know,
be way better than other
yeah,
stuff.
and you just can't control the deck all that well. So to picture how it'll play out is not the easiest thing for me to do.
Yeah. To give an idea of how good Treasure Trove is in money, if Smithy Big Money against like just straight up big money wins like in the 70ish percent, if you throw in a Treasure Trove, it goes above 90%. It's a really good money card.
So Mercury picks up a second gear. Now Dan, with that Cellar play, can already hit Province on turn 5, and he does pick it up. Which is pretty fast, but the double treasure trove should help keep his money density up. Mercury picks up his second treasure trove.
So Dan should
Right.
add another gear here,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right?
save 2 copper and buy gear is what I would expect, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what he's going to do.
Right. The main reason Treasure Trove is so good in money is it allows you to just start buying green cards really, really fast because your deck is going to have so much treasure in it for free.
So Mercury picks up a third gear.
Dan has to be getting tired of hitting 7.
And takes Dutchy.
Wow, Dutchy.
I don't. I know you can green sooner, but it just doesn't. It just builds in more $7 hands later.
Yeah, I don't
So
love the
nice turn
Dutchy.
for Mercury.
I wouldn't
Gets
mind a
to
count.
develop a gear and pick up a province there.
Yeah, nice turn for Mercury. I think the count might be reasonable early over the Dutchy because it lets you gain a Dutchy and it also can do some other stuff for you. And you don't mind taking the copper that it gives you as a penalty too much if you have to.
So another
Dan
Dutchy
is
from Dan.
committed to the greening.
He does have that Cellar advantage, I guess. But Mercury, with his 3 gears and fewer green cards, seems to have the better deck. So it's just a question of whether he's going to have the time to make up the points differential.
Yeah, being ahead in points here is really excellent, especially because you can hit 3 and still buy tunnel. So you really want to get to the point where you're 3-3 on provinces with more other points is a pretty good position.
So
And Dan
Mercury,
looks good to get there.
even just before the shuffle, Mercury picks up a tunnel.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with the tunnel that early, but I can see why he's doing it because you're so limited on the amount of time you have to catch up here. Because you can only score so many points a turn, and there's lots of greening that's going to happen for both players each turn.
Yeah, it's defensible, but I think given that Dan's already put 2 duchies into his deck, he's not going to be reliably hitting province that much, and adding a 4th gear will mean that Mercury would have had a really good shot to kind of reliably chain 8 coin hands together, and potentially take a 4 provinces.
I agree with that, especially from in a position where he's behind on points and needs to have Dan whiff. Well, he doesn't whiff, and the gear gives a much better chance at doing that. Like you
So
said,
Dan making sure that he could afford a province if he discarded 2 cards there and gets a clean shuffle. But now has only 5 in his next hand.
mm-hmm.
Leading only by 4 points. Dan will presumably pick up a duchy here.
Dan does manage to hit 8 in his next hand, which will be really good because that'll drive it down to 2 provinces in the supply with a lead.
Yeah, meanwhile, Mercury's chaining those gears together and picking up province, which is very strong.
Anytime you draw these pure treasure $8 hands when you're playing with some draw is just such a huge boost to this sort of big money thing. When you don't have to play any action card to get the 8, it's really fortunate.
Yeah, unquestionably. Dan just needs to hit 8 again, and that should put him in a pretty winning position.
But does not quite hit it here.
I mean, as long as he maintains the duchies, he's fine, right?
Yep.
True, because he's up by 7.
So, even if
and it's going to be pretty, it's going to take a pretty bad turn to not hit 5 for these decks.
Yeah, especially with the gears. And Dan does have another gear at the bottom, I believe, of the
Yeah, he
shuffle.
can save 2 coppers here and still pick up a duchy and be in a really strong position.
And because Mercury had to pick up the tunnel last turn, Dan doesn't even need to hit 5. He just needs to hit 3.
I guess if Dan knows what his bottom cards are, he might take. I was gonna say he might put the gold down and take tunnel this turn.
Smart, yeah. I mean, tunnel is only 1 point less than than the duchy.
So he already has province now.
And that'll put him in a position where he just needs to not whiff.
Yeah, and he can save the gold over, so he looks winning here. So yeah, those early duchies did not really slow Dan down. So I'm inclined to think they were a smart play.
Yeah, I never thought they were terrible, but building a little bit more also seems not bad either.
Right.
So Dan doesn't quite hit province, but can pick up the last duchy here, which means all he needs to do is match parity with. Well, he can even skip tunnels and a tunnel or 2 and still end up with the win.
Yeah,
but he has the province in hand.
Yeah, it would take unspeakable things for Dan to not win this game from this position. Especially with 8 in hand.
Yeah, that helps.
I didn't count correctly. Yeah.
So that's a win for Dan. Another moneyish board to follow the first one.
We haven't had trashing, basically. I mean, it was there on that board, but
and we haven't had villages for it. Or I guess there was a village in the first board. But yeah,
we had villages, but no reason to use them. We just haven't had quite all the pieces yet come together.
Yeah, it's been no big engine boards, which has been certainly strange. But sometimes that's how you roll them.
You're watching the Dominion Online Championship Finals between Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Mercury leads 2-1 in this best of 7 match, heading into the 4th game. I'm Akuchi, and joined in commentary by Mick Senok and Breppert.
Hello, again. So there's fade and donate here, right? To start. But you can build. I don't know how much you want to, but you can build.
Yeah, I would expect these players to take a long time thinking about the best line. It's something you really need to do with donate.
Did you say you don't know if you want to build?
No, I said I don't know like how much you want to build. You
Oh,
build
okay.
here, of course, but there's a lack of like library draw is not ideal here. Ideally, you'd rather
Is
have something else.
Hold on now.
Is Fiatum donate an opening?
Uh, I think so. I think you'd like to. You can just crash just down to the 3 silvers, and
So
there's
there are
not
no
much else.
attacks here, and Fool's Gold donate is really fast. So if you open with 3 Fool's Gold and then donate down to just the 3 Fool's Gold, then you can pay off debt and buy another Fool's Gold on turn 5 and then start provincing. And you can get 3 provinces on turn 6, 7, and 8 guaranteed, at which point you have a chance to miss starting on turn 9. But there's a good chance that you can get 5 provinces by turn 11 with just Fool's Gold donate.
That
Yeah,
does seem potentially
pretty good.
pretty good here. Yeah, it's not something I would have thought about right away.
So if you try to build, you're going to have to do something that can contest that or
There's a bit
compete
of a.
against that.
Do you think if you do the full scroll thing, do you try to add in a charm or smugglers to that, or do you just go straight full scroll so that you don't end up wasting a turn?
I think you just buy the Fool's Golds. I mean, I guess you could think about the smugglers once you see what your opponent's doing. So what is the line? If you do the Fiatum line, you basically start turn 3 with however many silvers Fiatum gives you. I don't know what it is. 3.
Yeah, it's 3.
So you pay the donate off that turn. So turn 4, you've got $6.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know then where you go, but you'd almost have to get a charm from there. But
Yeah, I think you have to go charm, and then you do like bazaars and conspirators with maybe light library support.
yeah, you'd probably charm the first turn. The next turn you'd go Bazaar Library, and the turn after that probably Conspirator Remodel. I guess you could do Conspirator Remodel first.
Yeah, it's just tough.
Because you've gotta switch those silvers over to Bazaars, right?
Right.
Or charms.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm wondering if you do go with the engine approach and like your opponent does get to like 5 or 6 provinces, um, is there any possibility that you can do a like Feodum points play where what you primarily do is get all the Feodum and then like donate 4 or 5 of them?
I don't know if you can hold that in the engine with the library as your draw.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
like that's kind of like at the end, like, or like T-1, you
Yeah, but
buy
I don't
as
even know
many
if you can
Feodum
hold.
as you
I don't
can.
even know if you can hold Fiatum.
Mm.
Yeah,
I guess.
there's no discarding, and you already it's kind of awkward to keep stop cards out of your deck early on, so it's hard to really play some big engine thing here. The engine here is small.
I guess it's just a time pressure. You could build a pretty big thing,
Right, you just don't have
but
time.
if they are attacking the provinces, then um, there's issue.
Yeah, you could build pretty good if you're playing a player like Lord Raddington. If you're playing someone who's playing that fast fool's gold thing, it's much different.
Or you can build if they're mirroring you, right? And
True,
you'll want to if they're mirroring you.
true.
Um,
So
so
Mercury
Mercury
goes
is
with the Feodum opening.
well. At least we'll get to see that play out. Maybe we'll get to see 2 different things. We'll see what Dan does.
Yeah, I would be surprised if Dan went with a simple Fool's Gold strategy, even though I do think it's very strong on this board. There are a lot of fun cards to play with.
Yeah, it's rare to see Dan decide to go for the simple thing over the complex thing.
I guess I'm worried on the Fool's Gold thing. How bad does it get once you start? I know the first few are guaranteed.
Mhm. Yeah, so you get into a situation where you have like 4 fool's gold and 3 province, and you need to see at least 3 of the fool's gold.
Right.
And if you miss, of course, you can buy another fool's gold. Um, you could also, if you're really far ahead, pick up a remodel and then just start remodeling provinces.
True. I think also a thing to consider is that this engine does not green well at all. Sticking provinces and duchies into it makes it way better, way worse of a deck. And so the speed thing takes a lot more merit when the engine cannot buy a bunch of duchies and still keep operating.
Yeah, it is hard to hold green. You would really much prefer the library was a smithy.
Yeah.
Or smithy variant of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
that
then
would make it much more engine-y.
you would be able to probably go pretty heavy on charms, and you could do your duchies in 1 or 2 turns.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But with the
if
library
you
being
had
your main
all that
draw,
excess draw.
yeah, with library being main draw, I can't see holding more than 2 or 3 charms, and even that's pretty extravagant.
So it looks like Dan's mirroring with a Feodum, and Mercury does a turn 2 donate. We'll see if he holds on to any coppers.
Yeah.
So he's got 5 debt to pay off.
So I
So
don't
it
think,
seems
yeah, I don't think we'll see either of these guys do the full sword thing. I guess from their opening, which is not too uncommon when you see some really good players play to skip a more simple strategy to go for the more complex thing. But there are certainly some players like you, Author who know those things and see those things. But I wouldn't be that surprised if they didn't even really consider the full gold thing for that long.
so Mercury keeps a copper, which implies, I guess, that Mercury is going to buy a 2-cost card
It's a
on
little
turn
odd.
3. Yeah, I wonder if it will be Fool's Gold or Lurker.
Lurker seems not crazy. It's nice with the library draw. And it gets another action in your deck so that you can add conspirators a little earlier.
It is play nicely with the library. Very nicely. And with the remodel,
So yeah, Dan does the same thing,
potentially.
keeping the 1 copper. So they are mirrored exactly at this point, and Mercury picks up a Lurker.
This is,
and Dan follows.
yeah, this is a bit odd, I think. But
yeah, now Mercury is not going to want to play that Lurker.
Yeah, I think Dan would be happy with anything that Mercury would stick in the trash, even as a joke.
I think, yeah, Dan is happy to mirror here, I guess, with the Lurker thing, just because that makes Mercury's Lurker buy worthless at this point.
Mm-hmm.
so now we get to watch them not play lurkers for a while.
So
I guess
Mercury
we'll
gets
see
a
if.
remodel. That could
I mean,
be to
I
remodel
like the
copper
remodel.
into Lurker, or to remodel silver into Bazaar, I guess.
Yeah, I think Copper to Lurker would be ideal, but
He didn't
Silver to
draw
Bazaar
that.
is okay.
I mean, he's got to do silver bazaar because he didn't draw the copper.
Mm-hmm.
And Tan didn't draw his remodel, which is bad. But yeah,
If
so
there weren't
far,
remodel on this board, this would be I would be throwing in action cards I didn't want into the trash because you always got to do that with lurker. But
Yeah,
unfortunately, they can use it no matter what, and nothing here is bad enough.
yeah. The Smugglers is probably
Unfortunately,
the worst card, but it's useful enough to where you don't want to just give it to your opponent.
so I wonder if Mercury will take a conspirator or a second lurker here. Looks like
Yeah,
conspirator.
and
yeah.
Smugglers will be really good here, pretty fast. It's just early on. It's a terminal you have to work around.
Yeah, he is going to activate his conspirator here.
Mm-hmm.
The I guess we can kind of bear in mind what the Fool's Gold plan would be at any given turn.
Yeah, at turn 5, the Fool's Gold player would be paying off debt and buying the 4th Fool's Gold.
So 6, 7, 8 are provinces.
Yep.
That looks pretty good against the state of these engines right now.
Yeah. I mean, Mercury has a chance to build up a little pretty fast here, but not that fast.
So Bazaar for Dan Brooks, and he has a nice hand coming up. Not as nice as Mercury's, who gets to draw the full deck. What happened with the lurker play for Mercury? I didn't see.
I think he
Did nothing.
Okay, yeah. You apparently you can do nothing with lurker. You can choose.
yeah, you can choose to gain
an action card even if there is none.
if
Okay,
there's not one there.
Right.
I was not aware of that. All right. Picks up, trashes the copper to get a second lurker.
Yep.
And is now figuring out what action to put in the deck, and it's a second Bazaar.
I would have thought about Charm or Library there, but
Yeah, it's certainly library next.
it's not bad to. I mean, it doesn't matter a huge amount, so you can remodel into whatever. But
Yeah, and the Bazaar it makes your turn more guaranteed if you're already in a winning position.
Mercury can remodel silver into charm, right?
Mm-hmm.
he will activate again, Conspirator, and he'd like to draw. Well, it probably doesn't matter a huge amount if he draws Bazaar or not, but I guess he'd like to draw it.
Yeah, so Dan picks up the second lurker, and he's just behind now because his remodel missed that shuffle.
Yeah, between the remodel and being second on a donate board, these donate boards are so precise that those little things can really set you way back.
Yeah, so Mercury picks up a library with his two lurkers.
And he can take another copy of Bazaar Library here, or Charm.
Or Charm. So, I mean, Mercury's at a state where he's gaining maybe 3 or 4 action cards a turn. Or he should be from this point on. Close to that, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But his Fool's Gold competitor now has two provinces. And he's buying the third one. It's just hard to hold green in this deck. That's the issue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's the money thing. If it can just get provinces if it can get 4 provinces and then just kind of trade some duchies, the engine is going to get really bad too.
So Dan Brooks picks up a library, a third Bazaar, and a Smugglers. So the Smugglers is a difference between the two decks right now.
Yeah.
I think the Bazaar split is important. So if one player manages to get 6 of them, that presents a higher ceiling for what the deck is capable of.
So Mercury could get a Smuggler's End play at the.
Yeah, Mercury has a lot of options here with all the actions and the remodel and the ability to draw back up.
I expect the Charm to be a double 4, basically.
Remodel Conspirator?
Yeah, but I guess that's what I'm thinking, but
I could see double 5 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mercury remodels his final silver into another Bazaar and picks up a Smugglers with the Lurker. So he can smuggle.
I wonder if he'll chain Smugglers here. Yeah.
Ooh. Gets a second Smugglers. And this is another library.
The Smugglers is good, but once the Bazaars are done, it definitely gets worse. That's the main card that you really want a lot of early on.
Okay, so Mercury buys a Bazaar and gains a library. So Mercury now has a Bazaar. It looks like that is going to be split evenly.
What we're actually going to have here is a 3 pile.
Yeah, with these lurkers, especially.
With the lurkers and the smugglers. The Bazaars will be gone probably by the end of Dan's turn. The libraries will be low.
Mm-hmm.
Lowish. I mean, nothing's that low yet, but with these kinds of decks.
But Dan didn't see his library, so his turn is not going to be overwhelmingly impressive.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Dan should not gain anything with these lurkers here, probably.
Or not with the remodel, I
Not
guess.
with, yeah, he should gain nothing that's not a. He should not gain a good 5 because Mercury gets 2 cards and Dan would only get 1.
Yeah, picks up a library. That's Mercury probably doesn't want 2 more libraries at this point, so that's probably better than getting a charm from Dan's perspective.
Yeah, I can see that.
So Mercury with libraries. Ooh. Is that all the? Did they split the bazaars?
Yep.
Yeah.
So Mercury may have a horrible hand next turn, especially if he keeps gaining libraries.
Yeah, I think this is 4th library.
So the next turn has 3 libraries already, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what?
His remodel, right?
His remodel. So it's already almost certainly a dud. And he's adding more terminals.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
he's
he
just
picks up a conspirator.
He's gonna donate to save it. That's
That's
smart.
funny.
Interesting.
That's pretty clever.
Huh.
That's super. That's I
Wow.
love it.
Yeah, I have done that before, and you know you have a dud hand to donate. It is
Yeah.
definitely a good play, but it's not. It's kind of an odd mechanic of donate.
Yeah, he's only got 3
Oh man,
3 debt left.
that's great.
But he did pick up conspirators, which gives Dan the opportunity to smuggle a conspirator.
Just for people who don't know what the donate trick that Mercury just did is that when you buy donate, you put your whole hand into your deck, reshuffle, and draw a new hand. So you have the ability to, if you know you have a bad hand coming up, to basically reshuffle your whole deck before playing your next turn.
Yeah, so Dan is in a tough spot where anything good that he picks up, Mercury with his 2 smugglers can grab 2 of if his hand cooperates. But of course, Dan has to improve his deck. So
it would be nice to have more lurkers for pile control. That's sort of the easiest way to empty stuff here. But it's hard to maneuver around all this smuggler stuff.
Yeah, do you think it's reasonable for Dan to skip charm entirely?
It's hard to say. Because playing from these really losing positions, you often have to do things that you would not otherwise do. I could see it being possible.
Whoa, we've got a weird play here. So does Dan see a pile out? He remodeled smugglers into smugglers.
And then he can gain it back with lurker.
He doesn't have 10 gains though. So he's maneuvering just so he has more gains. But
okay,
he doesn't have a pile out.
So what is he going to do with this other lurker?
Look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. That's about it.
Okay, so that play was fancy for not a ton of gain.
I assume he's gonna province here.
Yeah, he's got to just kind of province and then hope to pile out when he can.
Dan gains a couple conspirators and plays them. Yeah, he only has 2 libraries, which is a little bit risky.
It's not crazy for Dan to stick another lurker in the trash here because it doesn't help Mercury because he has the 2 lurkers. It doesn't help Mercury to gain the lurker from the trash because Mercury has the 2 lurkers. So it's no different than if Mercury got 2 lurkers combined and decided to gain something, or just gain the lurker that Dan puts in the trash. And Dan does want to lower these piles. So
What do you mean? It does help him.
it does. He gets the oh yeah, because he can play it. Yeah, I'm wrong.
He gets a lurker. I mean, it's just a free lurker.
I was thinking that I was not thinking about the gain in play ability, and if
Yeah.
there wasn't the gain in play, then it doesn't help him that
Right.
much.
Yeah, it didn't change the parity, but he can play it. So
Yeah, and Mercury's gonna draw his deck here, so he can do
So,
it.
but Dan does play the lurker and trashes a smugglers, which is odd, and buys a province.
accepting the fact that Mercury doesn't have enough terminals for doing this or enough actions for doing this, there would be a chain of smugglers plays that could be made, I think, to empty the conspirators and the smugglers.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it won't work because he doesn't have the action.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's hand, meanwhile, is a bust.
Yeah, that's sad for Dan.
I mean, if I were Mercury, I would feel okay about getting enough conspirators that I can province.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what else that could be done or should be done.
Yeah, Mercury has the advantage of having the charm, so he has the potential to get province and duchy or
I
whatever.
don't think he can get enough to double province. He can add quite a bit of cash, but not that much. I don't think, but maybe. Well, he has 3 debt, so that's not going to happen. He's not going to get 19,
Right.
but
yeah, I wonder. Yeah, it's just these decks don't have a ton of consistency.
Yeah, you have to draw up Bazaar Library in your hand, and there's no way to really help that other than just being trashed.
So, if we're looking at the Fool's Gold strategy, turn 10 is super. If a super lucky draw, that would be 5 provinces, but with a more normal draw, that would be a 4th province and a 5th Fool's Gold at this point.
Which would win? I think I feel pretty clearly about saying that would beat what these decks have done.
yeah. We should give a shout out to JSH. He called the donate play before Mercury did it. They're going wild in chat.
I guess Mercury's just thinking about what to play out of hand here. It doesn't really matter because the library can find the bazaars for him, no problem.
Yeah, he can play everything. I guess if he's worried about piles. I mean, as long as he doesn't gain like another smugglers. Well, I'm just not seeing Dan piling out. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's a lot of gains, and with only 2 lurkers and a couple villages, it's a pile out is a long way away.
I mean, we know Dan's not going to pile out, but even hypothetical Dan.
Yeah, I don't think with a perfect draw that Dan can pile out unless Mercury really helps. But Mercury does have to worry about that because Mercury could, if he's not paying attention, really help Dan. First, we know that Dan will, like you said, but Mercury does not know that, or at least Mercury should not know that.
So when Dan puts a non-lurker card in the trash, though, it does change the lurker dynamic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Or it doesn't hurt. It doesn't help Mercury particularly.
Yeah, Mercury is pretty limited on terminal space at this point, so Dan throwing terminals into the trash doesn't really help Mercury.
Yeah, Mercury really needs to use 2 of the terminal spaces for libraries at the least. Or maybe just 1 will work here.
Yeah.
I guess he actually does have 19. He can double province here if he remodels library to gold. Or even if he doesn't. So
Yeah.
So he gets a double province, I think, is the play. I guess the question is whether you want to do something with remodel. He decides not to.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable to not remodel because Mercury
Yeah.
just wants to keep ticking off more than anything else.
Yeah. I think I would have thought about a gold just because it's nice to have that as a remodel target, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Dan gains a conspirator on his dud turn. Mercury is firing on all cylinders.
Mercury's going to double here again.
Yeah, Mercury can continue to lower these piles and double, and he'll be in a good spot unless his draws are just something incredibly brutal for the remainder of the game.
I think Mercury can end the game here. Lurker away another library and then buy 2 libraries.
Yep.
Yep.
He's
Or
even got a
remodel.
spare game.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's it.
All right. So that was pretty fast though. 11 turns. So I think that that's competitive with the fool's gold approach.
But he only had 18 points, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Although he could have scored more if he wasn't piling.
Yeah, the engine really came together though.
There's a couple things though. They get a speed boost from smugglers, which doesn't occur in a non-mirror.
Right.
So that's not nothing as far as how
so
quickly the deck's developed. But anyway,
here in the final match of the Dominion Online Championship, Mercury has a 3-1 lead over Dan Brooks. As we head into Game 5, Dan Brooks will start.
This looks like you play, some sort of. I mean, you have to play some sort of engine thing here with the relic attack, and there's a bunch of stuff to do. You want to play with pretty much everything here, I would think.
Tracer reports that he got to 6 provinces with Fiatum stuff in 11 turns.
Well, that's pretty good. I haven't played a sort of straight fade and donate thing, but 11 turns to 6 provinces is certainly fast enough to beat that stuff.
Yeah. He said the bad runs were on 12, so turn 12.
I think you
So
said
that's
usually 12.
Yeah.
So it looks hard for the engine with the quick economy things.
Mm-hmm.
Without some sort of attack or better alt VP.
So Dan Brooks opens with a lookout here.
Yeah, I think
on a 4/3.
Yeah, I like a lookout caravan type open and then pick up the potion the next shuffle.
Well, Dan chose not to get the caravan on his 4-coin hand.
Dan hasn't played his 4-coin or. Oh, yeah, I see. He had his 4-coin hand and he bought lookout. I mean, you can take a silver or an oracle, maybe a squire even.
You don't think we'll see a double lookout from Dan?
I do. Yeah, now that you say it, he definitely will do that. Only way to get thin and lookout's best early, so makes sense.
Yeah, the 5s aren't critical to get early.
Yeah, the main thing is that you do want to hit 4, and double lookout makes that tough to do, but delaying it a little bit isn't the end of the world either. It's a pretty bad 5-2. Mercury does the in thing.
I would not open it in.
I'm not saying on it.
So the in thing is to shuffle it in and trigger a shuffle when you have the 3 estate hand.
And it does do that, but it's still not a great shuffle you're triggering, and
And
the inn is
you
not a
just have
good
an
card.
in. You just have
Yeah,
an in, and it's terrible.
yeah.
It's not terrible, but there's gestures and relics. There's decent fives.
Yeah,
Hmm.
unusual. So yeah, Dan Brooks picks up the second lookout. Mercury picks up a lookout of his own on turn 2.
Um,
Dan will have a $2 hand, I believe, coming up, which is okay. It's not too bad here.
Yeah,
There's twos.
thankfully on this board you have options with the 2-coin hand, which makes the double lookout opening like reasonable. The triple lookout, the patented Steph play, right? The N+1 lookout approach.
the yeah, I want to. I'm trying to think through this in thing. It is nice to prevent Mercury from falling too far behind on the deck size stuff, but
Well, Mercury was fortunate to get that lookout into his hand turn 3 because that was a 1 out of 6 chance or something.
yeah, it was
Yeah, unless
quite
he could
fortunate.
drill the in too, so it's a little higher than 1 out of 6. But
Yeah, that's right. Um,
I
I
think you got
think
to go over going to state here. The fives are good enough to where you take it.
yeah, so you may not get a 5 hand out of it, but the cycling would be good if you don't.
Hmm.
So, do you expect these players to play with Alchemist?
Yeah, it's the best draw here, so I think
Yeah,
so.
and Mercury does trash the Overgrown Estate and picks up a potion.
Yeah, the problem Mercury will be having is that he won't be doing much on his turns other than buying an alchemist at best case scenario. So I think that's why you wouldn't mind trying to hit five. Just playing the jester or the relic is really good. You can still do other stuff on your turn. So I like delaying the alchemist a little bit longer, getting one payload card first, and then sliding into the alchemist. But going alchemist first is not way different either.
So Dan picks up a Squire and set up a 2 lookout hand.
So Dan
You
has had a
just do
lot of trouble hitting four.
you do need to be willing to take a 5 even if you have like a potion later,
Mm-hmm.
because not that that's all that likely, but
So Dan was able to get a 4-coin hand if he had discarded the lookout to his lookout, but he chose instead to keep the lookout to accelerate the trashing.
He also will hit four here with the Overgrown Estate.
he should he should also trash the Squire and
Gaining
get a Jester
Jester
or
or
Relic.
Relic, yep. But he chooses to. Oh, he can top deck the Squire.
Yeah,
Smart.
he'll
Okay.
still do it. I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Squire is nice to have once you have more economy, so you can buy Alchemist and another card.
I
But
think I
that's
would have
still a long
taken
way away.
Jester actually.
Yeah, the trashing is awkward enough, and the gaining is so good that I think I do like the Jester as well. But
I
Relic
guess
is defensible.
Yeah,
yeah.
Dan.
I mean, if my opponent had 2 lookouts, then it's a little worse. The Jester.
Mm-hmm.
Well, also, yeah, Dan doesn't have a terminal, so Jester does seem reasonable. But he picks up the Relic from his Squire trash and then buys a potion.
So I assume Mercury should, or well, Mercury ought to trash his Squire as well here. Pretty sure. Just getting the 5 is way better than. I think changing the Squire to a 5 is better than killing a cop.
Mm-hmm. You do want one either Squire or Pawn for some plus buy at some point here, but you should have an opportunity to pick that up later potentially.
Yeah, I think Squire is a pretty clear choice over Pawn. Just because you do have this opportunity to turn it into an attack, and you get 2 buys off of it.
Mm-hmm. This relic will be really nice against the inn that Mercury has, because Mercury's hand size will be really small after he plays the inn.
Yeah, Mercury picks up an Alchemist there and a Jester from the Squire trash. So Jester going in a little different direction.
I
than
think
the
I
relic
actually
that Dan has.
prefer reverse 5 gains for the 2 players. I think I would have rather Dan get the Jester and Mercury get the relic.
Yeah, Jester is going to be a hero if he reveals an alchemist.
Yeah.
Not so much if he reveals a lookout.
Mm-hmm.
Dan thinking long and hard about whether to trash this lookout, I guess.
I think he might be also thinking hard about what he wants to leave on top. If he wants to do some more trashing, leave the lookout, or stick the potion on top and make sure to get the alchemist. I like keeping the potion on top. I think it's time to start getting draw. You really want to play Jester Relic reliably as fast as possible. That's what's going to get you ahead here.
So yeah, Dan cannot hit 3 potion on his next turn by top decking the potion because he still has the Necropolis.
Yes.
He can still hit 3 potion though, right?
Does he have? He has 3 copper, or what
He
does he
has a
have down
lookout in there, right?
No, the lookout was on top.
Yeah,
He has
has
3
2
lookouts.
He has
Yeah,
3 lookouts.
Yep.
That seems
So
like
Dan
much.
does pick up a Jester now.
3 is a lot of lookouts, but he will be very, very thin.
I guess if Mercury reveals lookouts, he might just give them to Dan.
Yeah. I think
So
so.
he'd probably take the first one.
Interesting that, yeah, he doesn't want to get rid of the lookouts even still.
He's gonna be thin.
Top deck's a Jester. He'll hit 3 potion next turn. This looks like a Squire. Yep. So both players have a Squire in their deck. Yeah, so Mercury's Jester just gives Dan a copper, which is not going to matter much with all those lookouts that Dan has. Mercury gets a second Jester. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a little early for that, but I can.
I-
Well, it's definitely early because you could just buy Relic, which is better at this point.
Or even a Caravan, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
He's not clean and he's not drawing, so
Yeah.
Another Jester doesn't, just delays that more probably. I don't know.
Yeah.
So Dan gets his first Alchemist, and Mercury gets his second. And it looks like Dan will be able to pick up his second. So
Dan has 2 or does he have
2.
2 or 3?
It's 2. It's 2/2 now. Yep.
So Mercury has 2p here.
That's the magic of the Relic.
Yep.
Relic is just such a good attack at making bad turns happen early.
Yeah, it's a real no-brainer to just include one of in your deck. Unfortunately, we haven't talked about it yet, but Wolf Den is going to make you want to double up on some of these cards that you only have one of before the end of the game. There's still plenty of time before that.
It's just a long game, so you don't have to really worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
And Jester might just give it to you too.
I guess the piles could go kind of fast, but depending on what the Jesters start hitting.
Yeah, we haven't seen any caravans purchased, and really the window for getting caravans is kind of closing. You'd rather have alchemists, they both kind of offer the same sort of thing.
This is not a bad board for a second potion for Mercury, at least. Given the Wolfden stuff, and also because he's not clean.
Yeah.
At least it doesn't seem unreasonable.
Yeah, getting a few 6p turns might even be worthwhile.
But Mercury's just got all these terminals. He's still not trashed. I mean, I think Dan's just going to win on the back.
Mercury's Jester revealed a Jester, and he chose to gain it. So that's 3 Jesters now for Mercury.
Yeah.
And he buys an Oracle, so he has a ton of terminals. Still has his necropolis, but
And
that's
the
not
inn and a
very
squire.
exciting.
It's not a terminal issue really. In my mind, it's a
It's a draw
because he
issue,
does
right?
non-drawing cards. Yeah.
yeah he does have enough villages to play them most turns. It's not he could have a bad draw, but it's just that he's not going to move through his deck hardly at all. And Dan's going to play his deck every turn for the rest of the game.
Yeah. So Dan has now multiple buys and 6 potion. So we'll probably see an alchemist and either an oracle or a squire.
I could see a pawn as well.
Pawn's fine too, yeah.
Yeah, I just think I don't know. I'd be reluctant to pick up a pawn just because for Wolf then I'd be like, now I have to pick up another pawn and another squire before the end of the game.
That's true with Wolfden. In general, pawn's nice in these type of boards because you can use it as a little overdraw money, or you can, it'll never get in the way of your turn kicking off.
Mm-hmm. But Dan goes with an oracle, so yeah, he might be planning to hold on to his necropolis.
Mm-hmm. And the oracle attack is nothing to be sniffed at here as well, especially combined with relic.
Yeah, in combination with relic, or actually, oracle can. No, he can't really set up.
Because they get to pick.
Yeah, the jester.
It doesn't work with the 2 card things because they get to order it. Mm-hmm. Unless you reveal 2 things, which then it doesn't matter, but you also just find out what you're getting, I guess. But
so Mercury played a jester, gave Dan a copper, and then bought an inn. So hopefully trying to find those alchemists and get back to a good state where he can top deck them.
Yeah, the main problem is that Mercury's not in a position to deal with in decreasing his hand size.
No, and I mean this game is over.
Yeah, Dan I think Mercury needed to pick up a second lookout at some point.
Yeah. One lookout is not enough to get thin here.
So at this point, Dan has just one lookout, and he is super clean. So yeah, this is a really good spot to be in. Dan chooses not to play the jester.
He knew it was on top, right?
Preferring to get buys.
Yeah, Mercury had Squire or Overgrown Estate on top. It's hard to tell from the log.
I don't know how the log prints it.
Yeah, it can be either. I mean, from Dan's perspective, it could be either. So Alchemist and a Squire. So that's going to let Dan play one of the Alchemists for plus actions on his next turn. Assuming he draws his deck, which I think is very likely, perhaps guaranteed at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, like Nick said, it would take a miracle for Dan to lose from this position.
Yeah, and that's a bad jester pull for Mercury, revealing a lookout. He takes a second lookout, which is, it's late in the game for that. So Dan is leading the Alchemist split 5-3 right now, and he's going to be able to pick up the 6th Alchemist.
Mm-hmm. Mercury will probably be able to get a 4th, but that's still a wide enough gap to probably end the game regardless.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those situations where you're losing in every right.
Mm-hmm.
In drawing in quality cards and all kinds of things. So
yeah, he's got more gestures. That's it.
An inn would be pretty reasonable in Dan's deck, so that he could use a lookout to trash some of these coppers.
That's true. That would be not a bad play. The ideal way for him to get it would be to gesture.
Yeah, no such luck. Instead, he reveals a lookout, which is awkward. Dan doesn't want that lookout, but does he want to give it to Mercury? I think giving it to Mercury is fine.
Dan also has the option of trashing
either one is fine because he can just trash it immediately.
Absolutely. So Dan trashes his necropolis.
That seems fine at this point. It's easy enough to add squires, and squires are a little better.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we'll see if Dan picks up Alchemist in here. You could also utilize the 3 buys and get like Alchemist, Squire, Caravan or something. I don't know.
That is what he does.
I wouldn't hate a second Jester for Dan at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Dan's picking up a lot of singleton cards, so he's definitely playing for the long game here, which is fine. Like, he's got the relic attack pretty consistent here. And Mercury just can't get all his alchemists top decked consistently, which is just killing him. But he does get the last alchemist, so he's got 4 in his deck.
Dan already had one chance this tournament to come back from a 3-1 deficit, so he's gotten practice at it.
This was convenient.
That's a really nice reveal.
Yeah, Jester's able to give Dan another Jester.
Yeah, I mean, Dan right, he has this one, so he'll only be down 3-2. It'll be Mercury's start in the 6th, so that's always a tough game. But then Game 7, of course, would be winnable for anyone. And of course, Game 6 would be too, but that's, I think, the tough one when you know you're not going to be first player.
I think looking at Dan's past few turns, the Oracle is not a great buy.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't played it in a long time.
I think for Dan, at some point, it could be reasonable to trash the potion.
Could be. The top decking is still, with the deck that's as messy as this is going to get, is still really nice. I think as you start greening here, you want the potion still.
Yeah, I'd say like it depends also how many caravans he gets. You know, if he's got like 2 caravans alternating each turn, then he's going to be pretty likely to kick off.
Yeah, and if
6 alchemists.
Yeah, and if he's able to make piles be the thing that go rather than points, which he is in a position to potentially do, I think that increases the efficacy of killing the potion, killing some uniques, and just trying to pile out with the points lead.
He is definitely looking to pile out here. Undid a caravan buy. Yeah, so the game is not over yet, in the sense of the win condition has not been met. So Dan is trying to figure out the safest way to close this out on a win. And It's not obvious to me what path that is.
Yeah, the pile out's a little tough.
When I'm in a position like this, I like to smash them with the attacks. I mean, I would Jester as heavily as I could, probably.
I like doing the attacks too.
It's not. I mean, I think the Jester most of the time will be able to give them some sort of junk, or gain you a nice thing. It could reveal I mean, even if you're flipping alchemists, that doesn't gain you anything, but it's just bad for them to flip it.
Yeah.
So he's just shoring up his points, I guess. Sort of. He added 1 second copy and then got a singleton. So not quite shoring up his points. I guess it's nice to have an in for some lookout control, but I prefer squires to ins for the most part here. The dollar is better. You don't need the filtering that much to get. You don't need the filtering to get through your deck.
Mm-hmm.
Dan doesn't anyway. And sad lookout. And
Telling that Oracle's okay though.
The end really just lets you potentially trash something you don't want anymore with look. But other than that, or trash squires is another trick too. But
yeah, the trashing control is nice. I think I can definitely see it being justified to play with one for trashing control. Dan can, right, he has these 6 alchemists, so he can leave that 6th one on top, and then if it gets discarded, that's a bummer a little bit, but it does prevent Mercury's first Jester every turn from doing anything for Mercury.
Yeah, so Mercury gets another relic from his Jester and buys a province to take a small points lead.
Yeah, the main problem for Mercury here is that his turns are just never going to be any good. So, like, best case scenario, he gets to gain a card in a province. Well, Dan will reliably be able to do stuff like that, really at will.
So Dan gives out a curse there, which I don't think Mercury's going to have an easy time trashing. So that's going to hurt.
Yeah,
no.
it's a lot of points too.
It's a -4 curse, but if he gives out another one, then that'll be a +2 VP curse. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a second. Oh, okay. Dan's the one with the 2 relics, right? And Mercury just got his first relic through a Jester play.
Yeah, that's right. I could see kind of taking province caravan stuff here. The pileout's just kind of tough to make happen. There's no really clear third pile, I don't think.
Well, you can. Okay, I mean, he could buy. I guess he doesn't really have that much trashing. I would just say you can do a squire into Jester pile out.
Yeah, I just think it's a risky.
There's no reason to mess with that
Yeah.
particularly, other than like if you're bored and you want the game to end faster.
Yeah.
He can just get, more caravans, and more.
It's tough to play around like your opponent's 3 Jesters. Who knows what they're going to reveal. Safer to take the province caravan play, which he did.
So your opponent's 3 Jesters is more like your opponent's Jester every other turn, 1 Jester every other turn or something.
Yeah.
Mercury is still not consistently top decking Alchemist. This is a real big dud.
And Dan does have that protection rate, top deck 6 Alchemist, and Mercury can't gain anything, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Not unless he plays 2.
Protection, so. Yeah. And Dan has so much draw that he doesn't mind the Alchemist being discarded.
Mm-hmm.
But he'd really like to see that in.
He will get to see it playing this Oracle.
Oh, so I'm not sure what happened, but Dan has 3 Jesters. What? Oh, no. Okay. We were looking at Mercury, Jester, and Squire. It all makes sense to me now.
So Dan will score 3 points here when he trashes his copper.
Mm-hmm. I could see Dan electing to take just like double caravan here instead of more province. To keep symmetry with his caravans, if he gets 2 down every turn, that's going to make it him really, really reliable, and he doesn't really need the points.
No. He definitely doesn't need the points.
Yeah, two caravans and a squire would be nice for just like alternating the caravans also. But it looks like he's going to get province and oracle, which means that this turn is going to be really strong with the double caravan, but the next turn will not be as strong.
Yeah, he will struggle to draw his whole deck on his turns where he doesn't have the caravans down. His turns won't be awful or anything, but he will struggle to draw
I don't
everything.
think he'll struggle, right? He's overdrawing before.
We'll
can
not
do
find out.
He can do the. He won't be able to put every card in his hand, but he'll be able to see every card.
Yeah, he just
with the
wouldn't.
end.
Yeah,
You just have to discard 2 provinces right at the end of it.
yeah, and if he like hits stuff with gesture that he wants to play, he might not be able to do that. But Mercury resigns here, which he could have done a while ago.
Yeah, it was a lost position, but you want to play it out in this championship finale, so long as you're not ruining your own mental state. Yeah.
I don't really. I mean, I don't always do this. It can be hard to do, but I think it's better to resign sooner, unless you think somehow your opponent beating you up in the game is taking more mental energy from them or something. But
yeah, usually it takes more mental energy to sit there and get slaughtered than to play through your cards.
Yeah, well, just to have turns that do nothing, it's just disheartening.
Yeah. So Mercury resigns, and I guess I'll do my spiel. For those just tuning in, you're watching the Dominion Online Championship Finals between Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Mercury leads 3-2 in this best of 7 match. One more win, and Mercury will be the best Dominion player of 2017 or something, and win a prize of 500 euros. I am Akuchi. I'm joined in commentary by top Dominion players Mick Senok and Breppert.
Hello for the last time, maybe.
No. Well, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
No, we won a game 7.
Yeah, we do. Although as commentators, we're not allowed to root for a specific player, but I guess we can root for a game 7.
We can root for game 7. That's not deciding anything.
Mm-hmm.
So this board has some stuff. Absolutely has some stuff, including Platinum and Colony.
Yeah, that's an easy thing to miss looking at.
Except for, I wish Hamlet weren't here, because then we would have the classic gain treasures to feed buys.
Yeah.
Through Spice Merchant, and you would want to do it.
Yeah, you'd have to do the Jack Spice Merchant for buys, Jack to gain silvers, and Spice Merchant to trash them for buys.
At least until the cities came on, but
yeah, as it stands, there are 3 like good, like I call them tempo trashers in Masquerade, Spice Merchant, and Jack of all trades.
Right, they all trash and do other good stuff for you at the same time.
Yeah, I would get up the price point chain ultimately to King's Court.
I think I want a mask. Probably Spice Mask.
Yeah, I'd go Spice Mask as well. I don't trust the Jack to not collide with the mask, and I think you really have to play with a mask.
Yeah, Mask Silver isn't very appealing because the 5 costs aren't something you really need. Or
so a gold's pretty sweet.
3 or 4. Yeah.
So that takes a lucky draw.
Yeah, you have to be really lucky for Mask Silver to hit 6 for
you. But if you did do it, you'd take the gold for sure.
Yeah.
But grabbing Hamlets is just going to set you up to be in a good spot going forward.
There's also a lot of good like 2 cost here that you're fine passing away, so you don't have to worry about like Masquerade stealing a lot of good cards from you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too excited to get Native Village here.
In general, the Masquerade passing good cards thing is overblown pretty badly. Because it's like a first world problem. if you're in the spot where you have a handful of good cards, that just means your
Yeah.
deck's good.
Yeah.
So yeah, unless the deck is so brittle that like you need every component, but that's not going to
Yeah,
be the
yeah,
case here.
right. There are certainly times where it can matter a lot,
So
but
ultimately, a native village could be useful just to set aside green cards, but I don't really know how the end game's going to play out at all. So
Yeah, it's kind of hard to set them aside. You have to toss them aside with Inner Hamlet, and then
yeah,
draw them. So it's
it's
not
I mean,
impossible. It's actually
it's
not
not
that
going to
hard.
be
not that hard
hard
to
with
do.
yeah
I think what
Hamlet's
I think what would be hard is having green cards in your deck. Um, well, I mean, the usual trajectory for a board like this is not have a lot of greening.
So one thing that's
Typically,
inconvenient for King's Court is that there is no action payload. I mean, except Spice Merchant, but like that's not really reliable. So you're gonna want to play with platinums, I imagine.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. It's King's Sword doesn't do a ton for you here, other than do nice sort of reliability stuff,
lots
um,
of draw,
and lots of draw. Yeah,
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
the
you're
draw is
definitely right. It doesn't. You can't blow up the deck here that much because there aren't actions that do anything hardly.
so Mercury opens with the Masquerade.
so I guess he's
We
thinking
got
about
like
going
a
double
full set.
masked or masked silver.
We got like a full set of drawing and support cards, basically good openers and stuff, but
Mhm.
no
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 good payload.
payload.
Yep. I mean, platinum is good payload, but it just doesn't mesh well with King's Court.
Yeah, but like on a King's Court board, almost any action payload is going to
Yeah,
outclass a platinum if it were available
yeah. You'd
Mm.
play
by a
with like
huge amount.
navigators if yeah,
Yeah, or like
like,
if there was a market even.
yeah.
Okay, so Mercury goes with the Mask Silver, and Dan goes with the Mask Spice Merchant. Spice Merchant play is a little higher variance, but definitely has a is like better in the long run. Get the trashing faster.
And Spice
Yep.
Merchant also ensures that it's really hard for your Masquerade to miss. You have to bottom deck it and the Spice Merchant. That's the only way.
Or I mean, you can draw a Spice Merchant dead with Mask, which is the like risk part.
True, but you'd still hit three. You'd still buy something okay.
So Mercury picks up a city, which is fine, I suppose. I don't know if any piles are going to empty in the near term. Like, if somebody loads up on cities, then that means they don't need as many Hamlets. There's going to be no incentive for the other opponent to like help them pile out Hamlets. So I think that's just going to be a village for a long time.
Dan does elect to go Hamlet there. He will need some silvers at some point. That's there's no other way to get up to 5 and 7.
Yeah.
Mercury
And
does
you
pick
also
up a
have to
Spice
afford
Merchant.
a platinum somehow too.
Mm-hmm.
No, you can't dodge silvers here. But Dan is
Ooh,
going
Dan
to
picks
gain
a
them and not
Jack.
buy them, which is totally reasonable.
It's actually right. Hamlet, Spice Merchant, Jack all synergize pretty well. Definitely
Yep.
reasonable to go that path.
Yeah, yeah. Jack fueling the Spice Merchant. I mean, if you want to use the King's Court as an action payload, you King's Court a Jack, and then you can King's Court a Spice Merchant, and now
Yeah.
you're looking at 6 coins and 3 buys, which is slightly better than a platinum at the cost of more draw. But if you got enough King's Courts, yeah, it'll be fine. And there's no saying you can't add some platinum
Mm-hmm.
in.
And the Hamlet Jack thing lets you have potentially some really really nice turns earlier on.
This won't help this viewer out for until 5 minutes has passed, but could you right click on Prince, Brepper?
Yes, and then I'll leave it there a while because
Do you guys
that's a
think
lot of
that
text.
Prince?
So I'm sure
You guys-
chat will explain what it is, but this will let them see it.
Do you guys think Prince has any value here?
It has
No.
value. I do not think its value is better than anything else you would buy at that price point.
I wouldn't buy a prince here.
Yeah.
I think it's just when the opportunity cost is King's Court or Platinum, it's just really hard to sell. Although, like, it comes down to how likely are you to get a dud, and how likely is Prince to like avoid that dud.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I'd take a free prince, but can't use a buy on one.
Yeah, you have to
And
use a buy and a terminal action. And at the end of the day, you print a Hamlet, which is a nice thing to have done, but it just doesn't help that much. It doesn't help
It's
with
also not a
how
great. It's not
much
the
it has to do.
greatest timing to
you
have the Hamlet princed either.
you cannot King's Court a Prince effectively. So there's that too.
It's I'd rather. Well, yeah, I mean, you prince a Hamlet. That takes a Hamlet out of being kingable, which reduces your gains and stuff. And
So Mercury thought for a long time perhaps he was trying to figure out where Dan was going with that Jack of all trades buy, and decides to mirror him.
It's definitely good with the Hamlet. Mercury does not have the Hamlets yet, so he'll have to add those, but he should be able to do that.
So Dan gets a double trash off here, which is nice.
Dan might take another Jack here or another mask, although it's maybe too much terminals then.
I could just see another Hamlet as well. I mean, he has a Spice
Yeah.
Merchant mask and Jack already. I don't think
I
he
think a
needs
high
more
Hamlet
trashing.
density is
Hamlet
nice
seems reasonable.
once you add the King's Court. Yeah, I think the mask silver opening for Mercury just didn't make sense on this board, because that city is just not really accomplishing anything. And now he buys an inn. Maybe he's hoping to get a good turn where he can play in, get a small size, and then play Jack, draw up, trash with Spice Merchant, and get to 7 to buy King's Court or something.
Yeah, and Mercury was at the end of a shuffle there, so he was able to give himself a good hand here.
Although, yeah, it was a little risky with the Masquerade threat, I guess. Well, I don't know if there were enough good cards that he could have shuffled into.
Yeah, he knew he had at least one copper in the bottom, so unless he bottom decked it, I'm not sure what's on bottom for him, but he had a really good shot of having the copper in hand at least.
So Dan has 6 coins. Pretty sad. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't even know what to get here.
I could see just taking maybe another village, or
He must be considering the gold though, right? Because
yeah, but he does have this jack. He's going to have plenty of silvers and a decent amount of draw.
yeah,
pretty shortly.
I'm not saying he should get one, but I think he must be considering it. Otherwise, he'd
Yeah, and I think you do take
trash the
a
coppers faster.
city
Maybe
here if you do take an action.
Yeah, I think the city is reasonable. You don't want to fall too far behind on the cities either.
And well, once you have 2 hamlets, you don't really need that many more, especially if your plan is this King's Court on Spice Merchant trashing silvers thing. You're going to
Right.
have all the buys you need. You don't need, Hamlet for the buys.
And Dan knows he has Hamlet Jack in his next hand, so he doesn't need to use the end trick to save a turn.
do we know what the last card Mercury's deck is?
We do not.
Oh,
Yeah, so Dan picks up the city, and now we get to see how strong this turn for Mercury is.
should be a King's Court turn, right?
Just
Ooh,
not enough.
Nope. It's rough.
But he does get a triple trash off, right?
Yeah, it was a nice turn,
Mm-hmm.
but still.
And now he has the silvers he needs to get up to King's Court if he gets a good shuffle. But in is not going to help him out unless he draws it with the jack.
Right, but he is fairly thin, so it's not unreasonable to expect him to be able to do that.
Yeah, so it looks like they've both trashed 2 estates and 3 coppers apiece.
Yep, that does look to be the case from the trash. I guess what is Mercury thinking about right now? Is he thinking about, do I take a gold or do I take more cities?
He might be thinking about a Hamlet if he I don't know if he thinks he needs an extra source of plus buy or something.
Yeah, I could see the Hamlet.
Oh wait, he has 2 buys, so actually, yeah, he could get 2 Hamlets. Seems better than a city, I think.
It's certainly not a straightforward build here at all because of the lack of payload, but there being so many good cards to play with, so it's kind of difficult to balance the treasure payload um, and building on with all these kingdom cards.
Yeah, absolutely. With no attacks on the board, which to me means that even if a person gets a little bit ahead, they're not going to be able to really cement their lead. It's always going to be, well, I mean, it depends how deterministic the decks are, but if a dud is reasonably possible, then we could see some situation where it's just within one dud away from the other player coming out ahead.
Right. The how you get ahead here is purely through gains. There's no way to slow down your opponent, and these decks seem like they'll always have a decent amount of variance to them. So even if you get 3 or 4 gains ahead of your opponent, one bad turn can even it back out pretty quickly. And the decks are pretty even at this point as far as stuff they have them in strength. I think Dan is maybe just a fraction ahead.
So Mercury does decide to get a city, and we've
Bad
got
draw for Mercury here, though.
a really nice draw for Dan.
Yeah, Mercury has a dud coming up here. He'll hit the trash and buy something, but he'll be dead. Dud
Can
turn.
Dan get to 7 here?
I believe
Well,
so. I
Can
think Dan has
Can
enough
he
silver.
guarantee it, I
I
guess?
think the question is, okay, interesting. So Dan is gonna trash the estate with the jack, and the question, yeah, I guess he figures he can get to 7 even doing that because of the mask.
I'm not sure about that because he could just master raid the estate. You have a
Yeah,
spice merchant to take care, or the copper's not terrible. So I could see pitching that estate being better.
yeah, but I assume he's worked through this. I would hope he'd work through this
Yeah, he's thought
to make
about it more
sure
than we have, right?
he can still hit 7. Well, then now he's actually thinking about whether to trash the estate or whether
Well,
to give it with mask.
he doesn't want to trash this estate now, right?
Okay.
He just wants to pass it.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, then it doesn't make. I guess yeah. Okay. You still might keep it just so. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, if
Although
he
he can see
trashes
his
it,
whole deck, right?
there's a chance of not getting to 7, right? If he trashes it, or is it
Uh,
guaranteed? Is everything
uh,
left at silver?
doesn't he have 3 silvers?
Yeah, I mean, if everything's left as a silver, then it
No, I guess he has 2
works.
silvers.
Yeah, so he needed to keep it
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
because you want to get the King's Court.
All right, so that was well done, getting to exactly 7 here with as thin of a deck as you can at this point. Yeah, it was a smart play for Dan to add that jack. Like usually you don't see a jack get picked up outside of the opening. So that was a clever build from Dan.
Right. Jack does this thing here where you really want it for draw, and you really want to be able to play it after you've played a village. So that's kind of why you see the delayed version, and also because it's terminal and masked is just better early. So it's competing against masked for plays early on.
Huh, so Mercury goes ahead and gets a gold, which is a little bit of a different than the kind of build that Dan is going for. That was interesting that Dan didn't use the King's Court on the city. I guess he figured, like, yeah, because if he hadn't drawn the mask, like, he would have just kingsed a jack. Like, that's not exciting.
I don't know that I agree with it, though. I guess we'll have to see how he plays his turnout. Maybe it's the thing to do.
Wow, he's doing it anyway. Because he doesn't have enough draw to like get through all that. But I guess he will be able to get another King's Court, and then he can try to pair up the King's Court with the Spice Merchant to stay on top of these treasures. But he'll need a reasonable draw to do that. So he has a Hamlet left in those 2 cards, I believe.
Yeah.
So if he wants to, I don't know if he wants to trigger that shuffle. That shuffle is, 3 silvers. Let's see. No, he can get through it all, right?
Yeah, he can draw.
Oh no, he can get through all but 1 because he has to discard.
Well, he doesn't because the
Masquerade's
the last thing.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So this clears out.
So he'll be able to pick up another King's Court here, and
we must have missed a card though.
Might have been a discard. No. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Oh, he tossed a copper off the top with his first jack play.
Okay, so he's got a for silver on top. But
having 1 dead card is not the worst.
Yeah, we'll see. Like with Spice Merchant, it's fine. With City or Hamlet, it's fine.
Probably. I mean, you're gonna end up with a treasure in hand because of the Masquerade.
Yeah, so long as Dan's shuffles continue to cooperate, he's definitely ahead.
Yeah, Dan's got this ability to get platinum, and then he's cleaner a little bit, so he's got the ability to kind of do this Spice Merchant Jack sort of. It's sort of sloppy, but you can do that and get platinum and build up a little bit faster than Mercury should be able to, because Mercury still needs as good as King's Courts.
I think Dan wants a 3rd King's Court before he goes in for platinum, just so it's more reliably in his starting hand, and he can guarantee to like King's Court both the Jack and the Spice Merchant. Maybe he can do it with 2. We'll find out this turn, I think. If his draws have to be really good for that to work out this turn. It's just so much easier with 3 King's Courts.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just have 2 with a deck this sort of messy, it's difficult to ting the king. With 3, it's a lot easier.
So Mercury finally gets the King's Court along with a couple trashes. So Dan does have the potential to just draw treasures if he plays that Masquerade. So I think King's Masquerade is the safe play.
Yeah, I think from a winning position, you don't want to risk not getting through stuff here. So playing the Masquerade off the King's Court looks good.
And I think the plan should be that he wants to king the Spice Merchant now.
Mm-hmm. Dan can play this jack to get another silver because he's going to be able to king the spice merchant and trash silver right back if he so chooses. He's also got to think about how to play these hamlets and maybe play the jack to draw stuff back up and do stuff like that.
I think the spice merchant jack stuff is probably wheel spinning.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't think you do it as your main strategy. I think you do it as
I mean, you can do it some, but I don't think you do it turn after turn.
Yeah. I mean, I think you do it, but kind of you don't try to use your king's courts to fuel it.
It's just not. It's not very much money.
Yeah, it's the buys, right? You use it for the buys, not for the money.
It's easy to get buys here, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And you don't have to hold silvers. I mean, a lot of the silvers you're just gaining in the middle of the turn, but
yeah, it's something that if you are overdrawing and you can do it, go ahead, but you don't want to. It is definitely wheel spinning as far as if you were to try to make that your payload.
Yeah, I think it's fine just to have the one set of jack and spice merchant, and then rely on platinum for the rest of the payload.
Because it's also not the easiest thing to do in the middle of a king's court chain either, right?
Right.
Yeah, especially jack is something you don't want to see in your generally, unless you've got the supporting cards, Hamlet or whatever.
So this was a pretty clever way to play this deck that Dan's doing.
I guess we'll see if he does platinum now or just more king's courts. I mean, more king's court, it's hard to argue with that.
And he can take another city if he takes the king's court as well to make himself really reliable.
Yeah.
Even an N wouldn't.
Or Hamlet Mask. King Hamlet Mask is not bad either.
True.
Ooh, more jack. So Dan is doubling down on the silver stuff. So
I think on Dan's computer he doesn't see the platinum. It's just invisible to him. Yeah, I mean Jack is cool for draw too. If you can get the cool situation he did there, where Jack is the only card in your hand. Normally Jack's not a great draw card, but sure is impressive when it draws 5.
It just seems a little more finicky than just having 4 platinum or something. But I don't know.
He might be thinking I might as well keep on building while I'm ahead, instead of dipping into. Well, certainly
yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with more king's courts. I guess I'm just not sure if he'll get the use out of the jacks, but we'll see. He seems to have a plan, so that's usually bodes well.
Dan also does this thing where he doesn't mind playing these complicated decks. Sometimes I don't, even if the jack thing is better, it's gosh, that's a pain to try and do that every turn. I'll just take the platinum.
Yeah, that's definitely more my approach.
Yeah,
depending.
Same here. Sometimes I'll simplify the cognitive load. If 2 things both seem kind of good, I'll pick the one that's harder to mess up. But Dan seems to really enjoy the tricky plays, intricate plays, I should say.
Yeah, that's definitely his reputation.
So Mercury has a pretty good turn here. Picks up his second king's court, and thinking about what to do with the 6 coins and 1 buy left. I think ultimately, well, yeah, it's a little unfortunate for Mercury, I think, that he doesn't have a Hamlet in his deck at this point, because it just offers a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, it's nice to have the cantrips, and not the discard ability of Hamlet plus the cantrip king's court ability. It's a nice card to have around. And the buys. I don't know if I mentioned that, but of course the buys.
Can't forget those buys.
Do you think we'll see level 2 cities here?
Probably not.
Or even level... Yeah, I guess level 2 is the one where they start to draw.
I don't know. Yeah, I never know what people mean by level 2. I don't know what counting system it's used.
Yeah,
There was, as you might imagine, once a thread on FDS about this, but
I'm sure if there's anything possible to argue about in Dominion, the argument has been had.
So because
and as
there's
you can imagine, it was an extremely productive thread.
Mm-hmm.
They settled it all.
Everybody agreed.
Everyone
And they all
agreed.
lived
It
happily
was
after.
very friendly.
Yeah. So because there's no mid-turn gaining, unless somebody has a big lead in cities, I think it's unlikely that there's going to be much of an incentive to empty a pile and to give like the opponent that advantage.
Yeah, without mid-turn gain on a King's Court board, you can't turn the buys on for them. Like, unless like you're way ahead.
Yeah, if you have like 8 cities, then then you can do it. But
you can turn the draw on. That's not an issue.
yeah.
But turning the money and the buys on, you can't do.
Yeah, you turn the buys on and they just get a free pile out at will.
It's a money draw for Dan. Sees double King's Court. See how he plays it.
So we can do Jack, Spice Merchant, and then another Jack. And I think he's guaranteed to be able to do that.
And he has another King's Court in there, so he can Kings the rest of the actions in his deck, whatever those happen to be. He's got one more Hamlet and one more Jack. And one more city, I guess. Oh, so Mercury ended up getting a Jack of all trades with his King's Court. So he's following Dan on that approach.
Yeah, they're both going 2 Jacks. I don't like it for Mercury nearly as much because Mercury doesn't have the deck control that Dan has. But Mercury's not that far behind either.
Well, and also, I mean, it may be an issue, but if he has one turn, he can easily make his deck more or less as consistent, right? Just takes like one king of a trasher to be more or less on the same level as far as number of treasures and stuff.
Yeah, Mercury's main problem is...
It just hurts to be behind in the King's Court.
Yeah, he's behind in the King's Court, he's behind in the Hamlets.
Sure.
He does have the inn and the extra village, so maybe he's not that far behind as far as good cards go, but it just certainly feels like when Mercury's playing out his turns, that he is more likely to have disappointing ones.
Oh.
Okay, so Dan...
Fortunately, this game might last another hour.
Yeah, this has been a long one after a lot of fast ones.
These turns are not fast to play, but yeah, it's
Well,
interesting that Mercury decided to follow with the second Jack instead of going for the platinum approach that we were thinking of.
Even the first 3 where there was basically nothing to do took an hour, and you could have played those. I mean, you could play the first game in 5 minutes.
Yeah, second game had a little going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've certainly been careful in their taking their time, which I guess is understandable for a game that has 500 euros on the line.
Yeah, well, just 200.
Just 200 of a difference. Yeah.
You can't do that much with 200 euros.
Yeah, 200 euros. I mean, you have to buy European stuff with it, so.
Yeah, you can only buy European things.
And neither of these players are European. What a tragedy. So Dan's got his King Spice Merchant into presumably Kinged Jack, although he might be thinking about just playing the Jack a single time and not kinging it. for fear that he's going to have too many silvers. I suppose Dan might consider adding an in if he does get a deck that he's not confident about the reliability. He could end up. Yeah, so he decides not to king jack,
which I think is incredibly reasonable. Right?
Yeah, he has
doesn't
enough.
want more than 5 silvers.
He could get King's Court. Well, he doesn't really need another King's Court, but he could get it if.
He could even take like King's Court Platinum and just start trying to hit 20 and just adding Platinum and draw each turn.
Yeah, I wonder though, like the double jack, if he wants to get a second Spice Merchant to stay on top of that, so he can actually king both jacks. I don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah, if he is kinging the jacks, then you kind of need to do that with the second Spice Merchant. What's hard to tell is if that's going to be faster than just going Platinum and adding King's Courts and cities and settlers and hamlets and stuff. I guess not settlers, but.
Right. I mean, so the other thing he can do is he can buy like King's Court, Hamlet, in or something, and shuffle all those actions into his deck, so he guarantees the hand to start with. If he's concerned, like if he really wants to.
He has a lot of silver.
Yeah, no, he's got certainly an uncomfortable amount of silver at this point.
And it doesn't have to be a Hamlet. The other line there is Jack in, and then he can like play the in, play the Jack, and hope to. A lot of options.
He could also take double Prince.
Yes, he could. Get spicy and Prince, Spice Merchant, and Jack.
Yeah, oh yeah. Princing Jack is about the saddest thing you can do with Prince.
Logistic note, in the event that Dan wins this game, Mercury and Dan will be tied 3-3, and there will be a 7th deciding game. That will be a random start, and if the first player wins, they win. If the second player wins, they win. But if there's a tie in the game, according to the rules of Dominion, then the player who went second wins. So that's a special rule for the 7th game. And it looks like the buys were Platinum, Hamlet, and Spice Merchant.
Yeah, that's interesting. He's going. That's all.
I mean, in some sense, it's okay, but King's Courts, as we've talked about, there's not this sort of super fast growth thing you can do with some crazy action. They're still really good, though.
Yeah, I can see Dan getting a 4th King's Court before the end, just because it's so much more powerful if you pair King's Courts together.
Yeah, and Dan has a lot of cards he has to draw through, and there's not really a ton of natural draw on the board. So getting the King's Courts just to help get through everything seems like he's going to need to do that.
I mean, I think I would be playing with another second mask by now.
Yeah, because mask
just for draw.
Kinging a mask is the best way to draw.
I have to wonder, you can't do that too early in your shuffle necessarily. You might not have a good card to give.
Well, they both have a ton of silvers.
You can pass silvers.
Yeah. Yeah, but Dan's making good use of that jack of all trades draw, which is impressive to see.
Mercury will not be able to draw on too much here, potentially. I guess he gets 2 cards, so he could be good.
Yeah,
no.
but it's tough.
So Mercury gets his 3rd King's Court and 2nd Spice Merchant. So his deck is pretty similar to Dan's, except he doesn't have the Hamlets that Dan has.
Right.
Or the Platinum.
Or the
at this point.
Platinum.
Yeah.
And the Hamlets just really lubricate that that King's Court engine.
I still am just not convinced of the Jack Spice. Or, I mean, of the degree to which they were pursuing it, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. I think having one of each was pretty clever, especially because they help you thin in the first place, and then you can take advantage of them mostly for like the plus buy.
Right, like they're really nice to accelerate building, but they're not payload.
Like yeah, getting the second one was unusual. Like Platinum, and then investing in alternative draw like Masquerade could have been better. But Platinum does cost 9, so maybe they just didn't see the opportunity to pick it up.
It's true.
It's pretty incredible that we're looking at turn 11 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember when we started this game, but it was a while ago.
It was at the hour. So 30 minutes ago. I only played 1 hour-long game in all of my Dominion career, as far as I can remember. That was not fun.
Really, even with all those custom boards that you had to play for the Dominion League Championships, those were usually like mind bending.
Yeah, those were
like
pretty bad.
Corner of Plenty boards or whatnot.
Yeah, no, those never went to an hour.
Yeah, those were typically really high powered, though. They're just weird.
Yeah, they do tend to be short turn numbers, but can be quite crammed with decisions per turn. I don't even know why the game lasts an hour. It was part of the remodel cage match or something. I don't know. It was with Steph, and but it was a long one. This anecdote brought to you by really super interesting anecdotes. Our sponsors.
Admittedly, we're just watching Dan and Mercury do the same thing every turn, so and it takes 20 minutes.
Their turns are like basically the same thing, but just like a little bit better each time, but only like a little bit.
Yeah, it's like $4 better each turn or each. Yeah.
It's like, oh, this time he kinged his jack. Oh wait, he did that last
turn. So Dan is run out of kinged actions, so I guess he'll use the last one on the Spice Merchant.
Yep. And he'll hit like 19 instead of 16 like he did last turn.
Yeah, so he's like keeping a consistent like 4 treasures in the deck. Possibly as like mask defense.
Yeah.
It's pretty safe what he's doing.
He's likely enough to draw everything anyways that it does seem pretty fine. And he chooses not to take... no, he does choose to take the extra silver. So. I was right. He had 19 instead of 16.
Yeah,
But
not that
it's
exciting.
a good number to have.
Yeah.
I guess I would probably do King Hamlet Mask.
Huh.
I could even
2 more
see
kings, huh?
like King Platinum and
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
thinking
something.
King Platinum in Mask or
King Plat
Hamlet.
Mask, King Plat Hamlet. I don't know. I'm a little bit. Well, that's a lot of actions. I'm trying to. I guess I'm a little worried about Dudding, but maybe he's okay. He's probably okay.
Well, I mean, if you pick up 2 King's Courts, then you got to worry about that quintuple King's Court hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a situation where Dan has what 7 stop cards in his or 8. He has 8 cards that don't like draw for him, and this kind of large deck. It's pretty hard for him to dud, I think, especially if he adds another king, another Hamlet. But first, we'll get to view Dan thinking for a little while here, which
So,
has become common.
mhm. So, Aku, who did you lose to in the tournament?
Faust, who was
Faust.
then defeated by Mercury444f.
Okay.
Yep.
Robert lost to the infamous Lazy Dog.
Yeah, I
My
started Lazy Dog's infamous streak of
my favorite player of the tournament.
yeah.
And Seprix got me.
Yeah, and then Lazy Dog got Seprix.
Yeah. And Vasunar. That was
Prince.
weird.
Dan just
Wow.
bought Prince. I just think we should point that out.
Yeah.
Wow. He's trying to collect
He's
them
worried
all.
about the consistency, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the advantage is once you Prince a Hamlet, you can just buy green, 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 green because it does add significant consistency.
Yeah, I mean the thing is there's a lot of
Or
game left.
yellow too. I
Like
guess not just green.
the piles aren't super low. Like I mean, okay, Kings and Hamlets could run, but there's not an obvious like third pile that's going to empty. I mean, okay, if Kings and Hamlets run, obviously like cities are going to empty, but
So Mercury will get a action here.
Yeah, he'll have a turn here.
yeah, triple Kings is nice there. He'll be able to triplicate all the actions remaining, which includes a Spice Merchant to help clean up some of those silvers.
But Mercury definitely is at a disadvantage in terms of money that his deck can generate. Although it's not massive, he's definitely is at 1. Um, so the Prince, it could be reasonable as a play where Dan just really wants to cement his lead, but it could also do the opposite where it lets Mercury get closer in terms of buying ability.
Right. It just doesn't increase what Dan can do in a turn at all. Unless it saves him from a bad draw.
And I think the bad draws are just not that likely, at least especially compared to just if you add another King's Court, which can then help you do other stuff as well.
Yeah. I do still find a Prince over a King's Court to be a tough sell myself.
Yeah, so Mercury's right up there with 19 and plenty of buys.
Sure, so he has the Mercury hits the same number that Dan did. Mercury just has the problem where he's doing it a turn later than Dan, so that puts Dan at a half turn ahead. But Dan won't be doing a bunch of better than 19 this turn.
I wonder if a city's actually better than a Hamlet. Dan passed the Hamlet, but I'm not 100% that it's worse than City.
I don't think it's impossible that Hamlet's run out, in which case City's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think you don't want, if he passes City, then Mercury gets 3, and Mercury has incentive to turn on stuff for the cities. So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the main reason to keep the City.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking that would give Mercury all the cities. That's a good point.
Yeah, so Mercury picked up King's Court, Platinum, and Hamlet. So he's not playing around with the Prince, which is correct. He's a little bit behind, and he doesn't want to invest in the reliability. He wants to challenge, Dan, assuming that he's not going to dud.
Yeah. Yep, I think that's absolutely correct.
Ooh, this is a. Yeah, this is an undue request.
This is this is like I didn't actually. So he meant to king the jack.
That's weird in any event, but okay.
So yeah, it's an information gained undue request that he's issuing.
Yeah.
Dan loves the undue. That's a fact.
Yeah, I would not expect Mercury to grant this undue. Not like saying anything about Mercury as a player, but I'm saying like as the generic
the real
player
question,
in a final.
does Mercury? I don't know how. I mean, I assume Mercury has to run this stuff through Google Translate, right?
Yeah.
He's not one of the.
Ooh,
So
that's a polite but decisive response. It doesn't kill Dan's turn in any way.
Yeah, it's not awful for Dan to just
could,
king a jack later.
Well, Dan can king a spice merchant and use some of those for draw. Like, that's completely reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Dan's the one with 2 cities.
Oh, Dan does have 2 cities. I did not notice that.
Mercury has the inn.
So.
Oh, Dan has to make sure he doesn't play all his Hamlets. He needs one for the Prince. I guess he has 2 left if Mercury has 2 Hamlets.
Dan had to trash a bunch of silvers for draw there, which is unfortunate for him.
He's not going to put out that much money this turn.
So King's Mask is a little bit scary here, but I think you have to go for it. But yeah, you might not have a great target to pass.
Well, he's got Spice and Jack in his bottom 3, right? Or did he discard one already?
Discarded a Jack.
Okay, so he's got a Spice Merchant at least. And I don't know.
I think he has one more Hamlet.
Okay.
So that might be...
So he's got a pretty good shot at passing some... If he's got one more Hamlet, he can just play the Hamlet.
True.
On the king. As long as he's got another one. He just has to save one for the Prince.
Yeah, I think he does have a 4th.
Yeah, so he's thinking about either Hamlet or Masquerade here.
He could also just pass the Prince because it's not that good.
Or he could Prince the Masquerade.
That's always fun.
It's not even crazy. I mean,
it's not because you need to pass.
You're going to be attacked by Masquerade from your opponent anyway. So attack, whatever. So you're going to have a card that they pass to you.
Right. You just prefer to start your turn with the action that Prince of Hamlet gives you.
This was the draw that Dan was hoping to avoid, but he passes the duplicate Hamlet.
Yeah, it's not terrible to give up the Hamlet.
I think he's just really trying to get the king off on his remaining jack and spice merchant, I think.
Yeah.
Looks like what he's trying to do. Although
You pretty
he had the actions for that anyway. I don't know what the motivation for not like kinging the Hamlet first was.
Yeah, I think there's no reason not to. But unless he just wanted to pass a Hamlet, in which case it doesn't matter. So,
I don't know why he'd prefer to pass a Hamlet. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I guess he is out of silver. Or like he has one silver left.
And yeah,
and
and silver's fine for his deck. He doesn't really need
but
the Hamlet.
he's going to be gaining 3 silver with this jack.
So. Right. He should print this Hamlet first so that King's Courting the Jack will let him draw everything. I mean, I just don't see any reason why he wouldn't. He needs to cancel
this last King's Court, he'll just not play. I mean, of the ones he's chaining now.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then just prints to the Hamlet and king the jack. And get up to... Is the last card a silver?
I believe so.
I believe so, yeah.
So get up to 19 again.
So I guess wheel spinning was a proper diagnosis.
This turn not any better than the previous.
And we wouldn't expect it to be with the print spy.
Yeah.
That's
but he does get
the reliability is nice. It is an advantage.
So I think taking a King's Court here is smart because Mercury, if he takes another King's Court, he's going to power up Dan's 2 cities. So Mercury will be reluctant to do that.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, like he doesn't need another King's Court, but like King's Court, Hamlet, Platinum seems reasonable.
Right, he could also just go double Platinum
Masquerade.
And just say, I'm consistent, I'm just going to draw, I'm going to have 5 buys and $30 next turn. But I'm not sure how good that actually is, because he is ultimately limited with what he can do hand size-wise.
Yeah, extra Masquerades can
I would want another King's Court, I think.
Yeah, King's Court Masquerade Platinum sounds pretty good.
You know what's going to happen here? Silvers are going to run.
Oh, wow.
They will.
That is, wow. That's pretty crazy.
And you can activate your cities that way.
Oh, my.
Wow. Yeah.
I wonder, if the players are going to notice and play for that.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to notice because it literally never happens on a non-Theoden board, other than in this game. With all the Dominion I've ever seen, I've never seen silvers run other than in a Theoden game.
There was a multiplayer tournament years ago that was like, there was a little prize. It was like partially... It was like sponsored by Rio Grande, partially. Not sponsored, but whatever. It was an official tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an online multiplayer tournament. And I played an embassy game, and the silvers ran. Because it was like 4 players, and everyone kept buying embassy, so 3 went every single turn.
Huh. Those games are usually fast, though.
Yeah. I'm sure the game didn't last very long.
Yeah.
But we got through the silver pile.
So this is a great starting hand for Dan. Or it's at least good.
Yeah, I think it's hard to ask for a much better one than this.
Yeah, he can pass a silver, like to the Masquerade. And then otherwise, he's just got a nice King's play.
Your only concern is it's possible to draw dead, but he gets to see 4 more cards, so it's unlikely.
Yeah.
It's a little bit sad to actually print a Hamlet.
Because you can't king it.
Because you can't king it.
Can't king it.
Yeah.
But
the prince was definitely Dan going out
probably
of his way
worth a trade-off. But
to prevent a
I mean,
die.
probably worth a trade-off once you have the prince. But
Mhm.
that is a
Right, that prince could have been another king's court.
yeah.
Yep.
The other pile out thing that you can do here, if you have a points lead, is curses. If you have the hamlets,
Yep.
potentially at least.
Yeah, Dan's Hamlet lead is not as large anymore. Mercury has 3, and Dan has 4, and one of them is Prince. So, but yeah, with King's Court, they can both get enough buys to do that.
Hmm. And you can even take some more hamlets to put yourself in a position to do it a lot easier.
Well, I don't know about curses though. I mean, like estate seems more real, just because it doesn't seem likely that you're going to be leading by so many points that the curses work. But maybe I'm mistaken. Like, because you can just add colony with the curses.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're Dan who's up the 10 points, there's at least a chance that it works.
This is a sad masquerade for Mercury here. He
That was
chose not to
weird. I
play
don't
the
know why he
jack
didn't play
first.
Jack first.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty clear mistake, I think.
Because he would have drawn everything still.
But in this case, Dan is just going to pass that spice merchant back, right?
Yeah. So it doesn't end up punishing him, but he could have played the Jack first, found a silver, and then played the mask and still drawn everything.
Hmm.
And still, I mean, he king to king, so he would have still been able to play everything.
And if Dan did have a bad card to pass back, Mercury would be left with a relatively sad end of the turn. I guess it worked out okay. So maybe we just weren't. He had calculated it out, and we hadn't.
Double
No, I
colony
mean,
from Mercury.
he couldn't have known that Dan had to pass it back.
Oh
True,
my.
true.
King's Court is not the card that Dan wanted to see there.
No,
It's a little scary.
he has a lot of out cards though.
Yeah.
But something like Jack is like not even good.
Well,
I mean, you
Jack's
can make
fine
it
because he
work.
can play all the kings out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean, if he finds a Jack, he'll draw on with the filtering.
yeah.
Well, most likely.
And there's nothing to be done here except King City, right?
Yeah, Dan could draw like silver, silver, platinum, but it doesn't seem hugely likely.
All right.
And yet he's fine.
All the kings though, so
I mean, that's okay.
Yeah.
Triplicated actions will happen here. I think ideally Dan does want to kings both as jacks and both as spice merchants. He just needs to make sure he gets enough draw.
Mm-hmm. And Dan should look to double colony this turn, because then that puts Mercury in a pretty awkward position as far as not being able to take any more colonies.
I wish this board had a single remodel variant. Some of these turns would have lasted 3 times as long, but the game would have ended 3 turns ago.
Yeah.
It's just you can't do anything here. There's just nothing.
Yeah, and
It's not true, but
and the jack stuff is really like complex to make sure you're doing the right thing every turn.
All right, so it looks like Dan's going to play out the kings and get the jack draw.
I wonder if there'll be an estate pile out.
Well, so silvers are going to go next turn.
On Mercury's turn, which could affect Mercury's ability to sustain like the spice merchant trashing. Although I think he has enough silvers left over. It's mostly going to affect Dan's next turn.
And it affects the pile out mechanics here a lot too, because the Hamlet and Kingscourt are both low, so
Absolutely.
you need to be ahead on points, or at least notice that and put yourself in a good position points wise, because piles are soon gone.
Yeah, kings and 3 hamlets comes out to 13 coins. So it's not impossible, I think, for Mercury to be able to buy out like the kings and the hamlets in a colony, maybe.
Yeah,
Uh,
he'll need points, because I can't imagine Dan not taking 2 colonies here.
I don't think Mercury will be able to do King, Hamlet, and colonies.
but
Or
there might be other
King,
lines, right? So if
what?
Silver's is out, then he could just empty hamlets and like hamlets and estates, but maybe he needs more points. Or um,
I mean, it'll depend, of course, on what Dan does points wise. But it's a lot of money to get the. I mean, if Dan can't double colony, then it's not so hard. Estates are probably pretty viable. So I don't know if Mercury will ever have that many buys.
Yeah,
Well,
he
it's it.
he
I don't
could,
know.
but it's
Maybe
tough.
not enough buys for the estates, but he might be able to do something.
yeah, Mercury doesn't have a ton of overdraw to like repeatedly discard for buy with Hamlet, right?
Right.
No, I mean it's real sensitive to the sequence you see stuff because you can make the jacks drop for you, and then it's okay to do the hamlets a bunch, but you have to find things in the right order.
And it gets harder to have the jacks be nice and clean at the end of your turns here because you've got green starting to clog stuff up.
It was really fortunate of Mercury that he was able to get that spice merchant back to hit 22.
Yeah, without that, he's in a much worse position. He's still in not a great position, but certainly one where you could see him being able to maneuver.
Um,
I think at this point, Dan needs to use some of his. Well, no, he's got no trouble drawing up the deck, I think, because he can use some of the spice merchants for a draw if he needs to.
Right. He still has 2 hamlets, or yeah, he still has 2 hamlets and a city in the deck, so he's got a lot extra draw because he can king everything.
I don't think it's possible for Dan to like pile out on a win here.
Yeah, I think it's too many points and a lot of buys.
Yeah.
no, it would take
Too much money is the biggest thing,
too
right?
much. I mean, he doesn't have
It's too
any
much money.
of it really.
Yeah, like he could get the buys to
Yeah,
empty like
yeah.
King's
If
Court,
everything
Hamlet's,
costs nothing.
estates, and another piece of green, but he doesn't have the coins for it.
So we're about to hit 3 hours here on this match. So certainly a careful, long played out games, which makes sense, I guess. If you think that that's something that someone should ever do in Dominion, this would be the time to do it.
Yeah, at least we got some boards where these players can showcase their talents. The first 3 were a little light on that.
With the green, it's a little harder. You can't use that final jack and draw everything. Draw all the treasure. Too much treasure. But you
Mhm.
can
Not a problem for Dan because he's still
No.
got a lot of triplicated actions, so he can just
No,
draw with Hamlet.
but what I'm saying is he can't leave the jack for the final action like he
Mhm.
has been doing,
Right.
or like they have been doing. He needs to save some cantrips, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think Mercury is gonna potentially have more trouble there. Mercury has one fewer King's Court. He has an inn instead of a second city, and he has one fewer hamlet.
Dan still has 3 tripled actions this turn.
Right, and he
So
has
he'll
the
get-
cantrips to do it.
He'll get the silvers and then he'll play city or whatever.
Yeah.
And I guess then king the spice merchant.
Yeah,
And then play the
makes
last
sense.
hamlet to draw the final silver.
I don't know what he will hit. I would imagine he'd love to be able to just double colony and continue to do that. Because that puts Mercury in a really tough spot.
I mean, so Dan's going to hit 19 again. Because he hadn't added any treasure to his deck. Turn. Is that correct?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, he just bought a colony and a king's.
He was not able to King's Sword his Jack last turn, though. He was able to do it this turn. He's able to King's Sword both of them.
So he might get 23.
Yeah, I think so. He's got, what, 6 plus... His hand is a little hard to read, but...
I'm a little confused why this is being played out so slowly. Like, if you can't empty on piles, the buys don't matter, right? You might as well just draw up.
Yeah, well, he doesn't quite draw everything, so he should discard the silver.
Well, he can use some of the spice merchant.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to draw. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. You're right.
It doesn't really matter. I guess, it's not as much.
It's the same money. But you're right. You could just play it out and get the draw real fast and be done with the turn. Or be done with the action part of the turn.
Plays King's Court again. No, he's got all the triplicate actions. He can triplicate both Hamlet and City. He's got no problem drawing.
Well, he has to he can triplicate a spice merchant and one of City or Hamlet.
No, I don't think so. It just said plays King's Court again in the. So I think he's got 5.
You're right. I thought I'd counted it to 9, but 1. I thought he had 9 kinged actions.
Yeah, I wonder if Dan was operating under the same.
No. I'm right. It always says that each time you play the King's Court.
Oh, okay.
See, that was the 3rd time. That's it.
Huh.
So he's not going to king the spice merchant.
Interesting. He might be thinking towards next turn where he's not going to have any silvers to gain.
True. It's not terrible.
Why he discarded stuff with the Hamlet, unless he sees a pile out. Why he put colony and silver into his hand, I'm not sure.
Well, putting silver into the next hand is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting colony into the next hand, not ideal.
Well, you can choose to draw it, right?
That's true.
Yeah, he can still clean it up. You're right.
And he
We
does.
We keep coming around in circles of our understanding of spice merchant.
There it is, 23. But it looks like theoretically, if he had drawn it all, he could have got to 25. That was peak that he could get. So we have a double colony by there. which makes sense. It is impossible for Mercury to buy 3 colonies, and I don't think it's possible for Mercury to get a winning pile out here.
It may not be possible for Mercury to buy a colony.
Oh, yeah, I can't see his hand.
He has a decent hand, but it's not. It doesn't look like maybe he'll be able to use his jacks that well.
So the jacks are done now, basically. Well, Mercury gets one more.
Yeah, and then Mercury will basically have to start taking provinces, and that's a tough game. Dan could dud. Dan does not have a great hand.
Although if the silver's empty, then his city is drawing 2 cards.
That's true, and the silver's. It's hard to imagine the silver's not emptying. Mercury would have to give up significant tempo to not play a jack here.
So they broke an hour on this game.
On this 14-turn game.
Yeah.
With no payload.
Yeah. The Europeans are waking up.
Yeah, they'll be able to wake up and start seeing this. It's I guess it's 6 in the morning in England and later east of there. So
yeah,
maybe in Russia they're waking up.
You know, at 6 o'clock, that's a perfect time to wake up. That's great. Well, the Germans are like +1, right, or +2, some of them.
Yeah.
I guess they're lower now that daylight savings has happened.
I think it's +1 now.
I guess Marcus is German, so he's he's just woken up.
Yeah.
He came over to the Twitch channel to try and catch the recording, but but now he has to see this.
I have to play 2 league matches in like 9 hours.
So after we finish Game 7 here, you'll have about 3 hours to sleep.
Yep.
This is a pretty sad-looking kind of turn for Mercury here.
Mm-hmm.
So you didn't kings, the jack. So still 2 silvers left.
Time to start killing the spice merchants, right? Or passing them over or something.
Yeah, they're pretty useless here. Pretty fast now.
I hope we get to that point where the decks like die. That's like my favorite thing that happens in Dominion.
Yeah,
is
when engines just start being you start adding gold and stuff.
Yeah, like you go from double colony to just like can buy a 5 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of turn Dan has. Like, if Mercury, doesn't get a ton of points, then Dan can safely take 2 colonies. If his deck can manage it. But yeah, with the silvers running out, it's gonna be amusing. The thing is, like, you don't have to kings the spice merchant. At that point, you can just like play him straight up and milk those silvers.
Yeah, Dan's going to have trouble actually. I think double colony because he doesn't have access to the silvers anymore. He has 6 in deck plus the platinum.
He can't double colony.
Right.
It's not possible.
Yep.
Oh.
Mercury passes a city?
And Dan passes a hamlet?
I guess, right, you want the silver because silver all of a sudden has become this precious resource.
Silver is better. I mean, the silver is better, but why does Mercury want to keep the spice merchant?
Interesting.
And then Dan passed the city back instead of the silver, which is
Yeah, I mean, if the
Interesting.
silvers aren't gonna empty, then city not amazing, but weird.
I don't get the keeping of the spice merchants.
Yeah.
All right, so that was a no op.
I really don't get it.
Yeah, the Spice Merchant doesn't do really anything anymore because you have plenty of draw for how few silvers you actually are able to have at this point.
And you have plenty of buy.
Mm-hmm. If we do get a Game 7 here, it's going to be interesting because they will be playing on what has to be pretty exhausted minds at this point.
Yeah, Dan seems to be able to handle these long matches pretty well, though. From what I've observed.
So he's kinging the Spice Merchant here.
Can he pile? Can he get king and... No, that's not 3 piles. Never mind.
All
It's
right,
a classic.
silvers are empty. The classic 2 pile.
Yeah.
2 piles are great. We've all done them.
Yeah. I'm more likely to go for the 4 pile than the 2 pile, actually. And thinking that I need another one.
You saw it here, folks. Silver pile is empty. Who could have predicted at the start of the game? Province Colony, pretty good turn for Mercury, and he's banking on Dan not being able to hit double colony, which
he can't,
which
right?
is smart.
Which is a good banking because it's not possible.
So now, yeah, see what Dan can make of this turn.
I mean, Dan still has enough silvers to buy a colony, but that's a little risky.
That's
Yeah, I think Dan would need to just buy provinces here, take the points lead back, and trust that Mercury's deck isn't going to be that great.
That gold of Mercury's will be coming in handy now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of has throughout the game, but it's an advantage that Mercury has over Dan.
Yeah, it has been doing some good work. Well, unfortunately for Mercury, it's going to be Dan's gold now. Most likely.
It has to be, right? There's no way you pass something else.
Yeah, well, I just mean unless Dan fails to draw.
Right.
True. But,
which is not likely.
But Dan, yeah, he gets to play the city.
The city's active, too.
Yeah, I'm not sure what order I'd play these cards in as Dan. Like, it's great if you can king the city.
I guess $15 wins for Dan, too. If he can get $15 and 9 buys, that's pretty steep, the buys. Maybe. Well, having not seen any King's Court yet. So.
What line are you looking at?
What are those piles?
Estate King's Court.
Estates, that's going to cost him
16. I'm not good at math, though, because I apparently think estates cost 1.
Oh, yeah.
That was the trick.
Well, anyway, so, yeah, Dan ended up getting the King's Court that he could play on the city. So now he's going to have a good turn.
23 would do it for Dan, but so would 22.
Yeah. We've been here for over 3 hours, too, so we can get passes.
No, he doesn't have a...
Yeah, Dan's deck is just pretty sad. Sad now.
Yeah, he's going to be able to hit whatever much money he has in deck, which is, I don't know, like, it's decent. It's like 16 or so, but it's not that great.
He doesn't have that many silvers, does he? We can look.
He ended with quite a few, but well, we can see how many.
That would be like
6.
5.
Oh, okay. He played 6 silvers, so he has 6.
So he has
32
12.
in the trash. Mercury has 2. Math checks out.
So he has $17.
Yeah, and double
Plus the
province is pretty
gold.
good.
Plus the gold.
So he'll have 18 because he'll. No, well, he'll have 20 because
He
he'll
can.
pass a spice
Yeah, he
merchant.
can. But he can pass
Yeah.
a jack.
Well,
Pass a
probably pass
jack.
a jack. Well, actually, probably Spice Merchant is worse than Jack. Because
Yeah,
Jack still does the draw to X stuff, which is probably useful
Yeah.
more than the Spice stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
spice
it might.
can save a
It
dead
might
turn.
like. Yeah, it might. Well, I was thinking Jack might save a dead turn for Mercury if he has like Hamlet in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And spice saves a dead turn at a cost that you don't really want to pay at this point.
So he did send the Jack,
Yeah.
which helps Mercury a good amount.
Yeah.
As far as not dudding, though it hurts to lose the gold.
That was a king mask. Oh,
Oh,
that's
was it?
interesting. So now he can. Well, he wants to
can
pass
decide.
the spice merchant here, right? Oh wow, he can. Oh man, he can just pass all his junk. So now he can decide whether to pass a spice merchant or a jack.
Yeah, now he knows that he knows what he's getting past, so he can make a better decision. But he gives the jack back.
Back to the jack. Yeah, I mean it's a toss up. Like both of them can save a turn depending on what.
Wouldn't you just love to have a deck that has like 3 platina?
Yeah. It would be like exactly as good as this, but takes so much less effort.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have to hold 6 silvers.
Yeah.
So there's like no reason for Dan to even like play on, right?
Yeah, Dan drawing doesn't do
he's played all his Hamlets, so he doesn't have any way to like set up his next turn. And he has no more play left.
Wait. I'm gonna try again with some addition. Nope. Never mind.
He still has the gold, right? It's just hiding.
Yeah.
Sometimes
the
side.
Yeah, the top
must
person's
be hiding
hand.
between the city and the King's Court or something, or the King's Court and the silver.
It looks like it's
the same thing I am.
It looks like the silver next to the spice merchant is covering it up. I don't know if it's deterministic or just kind of random on displays.
The opponent's hand is like a 20. Totally different thing from your own hand. Like you can't right click the cards. It's an upside down thing. It's
it's
the way they displayed is like a totally
happening
separate thing, or completely different. I don't know what word you'd use, but
model. Right, Dan draws up for no reason.
Yeah, Dan just took about 2 minutes to decide to do something.
He decided nothing. He decided to trash the jack of all trades. I think was what he was thinking about.
That seems correct.
He got rid of his jack and his spice. I can see keeping both of them.
Yeah.
For consistency, but
plus they're just nice things to pass too.
Yeah, I mean you can pass Hamlets now, I guess. I mean it's not ideal, but
yeah, you still want a lot of cantrips for draw. 20 is pretty nice.
I don't know if it's safe to take Colony Province. That's gonna lose to Colony Estate.
Who went first? Is it Mercury's start?
Yeah, it's Mercury's start. I really don't think it's
can't
safe.
take it.
Yeah, I would take 2 provinces with like the Prince advantage.
Yeah.
He's got the treasure advantage now too.
I mean, yeah, he's got everything, right?
Maybe he should take another coin. Just take a copper. Wait, no, he needs 2. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'd rather take one of these, like take a Settlers or a Masquerade, rather than something like a copper.
If he still had a spice merchant, he could take a copper to get to 22. But
he does have a spice merchant. It's in hand.
Oh, I thought he trashed it.
So province copper is reasonable.
It does give a shot at a win next turn. I don't know if he needs to do that though.
Ooh, Colony.
Wow. Wow.
So
That
He's
seems
gonna
pretty
feel
bad.
real bad if this loses it for him.
Mercury just needs 13.
Yep.
Which seems really likely.
Well, without the gold, is it?
Is that Mercury might not have that? Hold on. Mercury has he doesn't have the gold. He doesn't actually have enough.
He doesn't have money. He doesn't even have
He
enough for
has
a colony.
He has platinum 2 silver. Is Mercury's
Ah,
coin payload. So
wow.
that's a safe buy. And
Yeah.
Dan can even pick up like city if he wants. Like city
He
master.
Mercury needed to buy coppers, which
Yeah.
sounds weird, but he did actually.
Yeah, I had no idea that he had trashed so much Mercury.
Well, to be fair, he didn't know he was losing his before
His
that.
gold, yeah. Because with the gold, he still wouldn't have enough for colony estate. All right, we got a masquerade in. So Dan doubling down on the
Yeah.
reliability. Now he's gonna kick off.
Yep.
Yeah, with the gold he's still short. So he probably ought to have bought a copper or two.
Well, he knows that Mercury can't colony, right? So
Yeah, all Dan needs to do is buy a colony.
so just the inconsistency by a colony.
Dan can
get
pass.
out of here.
Can pass in. He can pass whatever he wants, just not King's Court.
It would have been the funniest possible thing would have been Dan having to hand all
treasures.
Yeah.
It would have been the worst.
He could not have
worst
though,
imaginable way.
because he top decked in Master, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, he did in.
He protected against everything. Yeah, smart plays from Dan. We were all jumping on him for colony. No,
But he's the only one who knew what was
he's paying attention to the game.
What was in Mercury's deck.
Yep. Yeah, just one copper and he would have limited what Dan could do there. Well, Dan would have and if
Dan
he had two coppers,
picked
Dan
up
would have had to
a
not
province.
take the colony at all.
No, he could have picked up colony province.
Now he's buying the copper.
Dan just wins.
Just
at
not
this
going to
point.
matter. Dan's going to get
Yep.
to hit it with the starting with the king city.
There's no combination of cards that Dan
All that stuff
can
in
draw
hand.
here that will make him not win.
Yep. And that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we're getting
Dan's
to game
having
7.
Fun playing the deck. So. Yeah, so that was a long one.
About an hour and 20 minutes.
So Dan had an interesting build. I like picking up that jack of all trades, and Mercury saw that and adjusted, and also played it well, but he was just a little bit behind. Dan was played nicely to get the King's Court without having to add a goal.
Yeah, if you remember about a little over an hour ago, early game, Mercury had a bit of a slower open and then just couldn't recover. And part of that was the cards that were bought to accelerate.
Yeah, it was a long time ago, so.
I mean, I do prefer the Spice Mask opening to the Silver Mask.
The Silver Mask seemed a little aimless with the city buy.
Right.
It's like you want Silver Mask if there's a 5 cost you need.
And you don't need to buy silver because you can just get a jack to get it for you.
Well, I don't think that was on Mercury, and it certainly wasn't on my mind.
Yeah, certainly it's something that in retrospect is there rather than thinking like you're going to build this thing where the silver's empty on turn 15.
All right, and so we're going to the deciding Game 7 of this Dominion Online Championship final between Dan Brooks and Mercury444f. Mercury got off to an early lead with a 3-1 advantage, but Dan clawed his way back in with two strong wins. And yeah, deciding 7th game, the winner will be crowned the champion and gets 500 euros. And the person who doesn't win will be in 2nd place. Still a worthy accomplishment.
That's a nice way of putting
it. and get a 300 euro prize.
So Dan gets the start here, which is a decent deal.
Yep.
Oh man, there is a lot of stuff on the board.
You wouldn't complain about a 5-2 here, but neither player has it.
So Enchantress counters rebuild pretty nicely.
Yeah, you couldn't do rebuild because of that probably.
Yeah, Enchantress just shuts it down.
I mean, I guess if you're willing to like pick an armory up first and have the cantrips and stuff.
Right. Plus this engine is just good, right? With Witch and all that.
So Remake isn't too exciting because of the shelters.
Yeah, it's not very good actually.
Yeah, I think you want to go maybe open Spice Merchant Enchantress or Spice Merchant Silver. And then Remake is something you might get later once you have more deck control because it doesn't help you at the start.
I'm not sure I'd buy a Remake here.
Well, you want it for the curse trashing, right?
Eventually you need to trash curses, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you can, it's with a Remaker count for that, I guess.
Yeah, it'd be great to open 5 here to get count.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good point. You will have the curses eventually.
So the draw is not amazing. It's in the form of Enchantress and Witch, which is enough with the trashing as it is, but it's not like overdraw or anything like it.
And you're going to want a lot of plazas because you're going to need to play as many of those terminals as you can.
Yeah, plaza split seems good. I don't see like Armory being good just because you want to get the Witch early, but maybe there's a time for it.
I can see opening Armory just because it's going to do so much for you this game. You really want it for all the plazas. You can even maybe get a 2nd Spice Merchant early because the Remake makes that a little bit more enticing. It does slow you down from hitting 5, no question, but I could see it being worth it because you do really, like if you get 6 or 7 of these plazas, that's going to put you in a good spot as well.
Yeah, Spice Merchant Enchantress just seems like such a clean opening to me.
Yeah.
And it's especially good as first player if you get the Enchantress to block one of their actions.
Although, somewhat notably, Enchantress does make their Necropolis better.
Yeah, Necropolis.
So Spice Merchant Silver might not be crazy. It does help you get the Witch a little faster, and the Witch is really excellent because of the kind of awkward nature of the trashing here. Or you can just open Bonfire, which is what Dan did.
Wow. I would not have thought to open Bonfire just because I don't see a good way to trash the shelters.
Yeah, it makes your deck quality a little sad at the start here, but they both choose to do it.
I wonder what they'll get.
It's a little better for Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
Since he trashes the Necro.
Ooh, yeah.
Or
right,
wait,
so Dan goes with the Remake.
So it's reasonable, right? The Remake, because you can get really thin with Bonfire, and then you can start getting 3s and 4s pretty quickly.
Mercury gets the Armory.
I guess Dan will still have it. Well, it depends on what his Overgrown Estate draws, but he might be able to do a Bonfire again.
Oh, that's a nice
he's guaranteed
draw.
to be able to do it again. Yeah.
Yep.
That is one way to get trashed fast.
Yeah, it's actually
What
a
would,
interesting route.
yeah, but what would have happened if someone had gone Enchantress and got it up in time?
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what if they like get it up in time repeatedly?
Yeah, then you lose. But it is hard to get Enchantress up that fast.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would have liked to see somebody, not open bonfire here, but oh well. This is a little unfortunate for Dan that his estates are both hiding. He'd love to remake them.
Hmm.
Ooh, Mercury, unbelievably, gets all 5 copper, or no, 5 of the 6 copper for a witch. Wow.
He has yeah. Sorry, 5 of 6. I don't know if it's good though.
I mean, it's good. Like armor, you can deck Plaza.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's really good, I think, with how his next turn's gonna be.
Yeah, I don't know what Dan's gonna do here. Pretty nasty.
Because I don't think Dan's all that thrilled about losing his Necropolis either.
Dan's just gonna spend 5 minutes deciding whether he wants to trash 2 coppers via remake or bonfire.
You don't think there's merit not playing remake? And
No, I think there is, but I think Dan's going to trash, so I just wanted to make a joke about it.
And yeah, that's what he did.
well, it's deterministic from here on out for Dan.
Hitting 2 is pretty sad for Mercury.
He got a witch.
But it's worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, top decks a Plaza and replaces state.
Dan just has to decide if he wants his Enchantress now or 2 silvers, I guess.
I think I'd take 2 silvers because he wants the witch.
Get the witch.
Yeah. He needs the draw, and he has the necro, so it gives him the best ability to have nice turns.
I mean, he doesn't really need the draw, but
Yeah, true. Well, once he has curses in his deck.
yeah, that's true. Man, Enchantress would be good to have.
And there was a line where Dan got the Enchantress in time.
I don't know why he played that Plaza.
It triggered a shuffle, right? And a pretty bad one.
Well, he would have triggered the shuffle anyway with the witch.
But like, it's not worth it. The token.
Oh, the discard of the
Oh,
topper,
the discard.
yeah.
Oh, okay, sure.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean.
Yeah, that was bad.
People do that all the time.
It's just a kind of thoughtless thing.
like, yeah, it's usually correct, but not if you're.
Yeah, if you're not going to get all the way through a shuffle, it's like equivalent to like buying a copper. It's not quite equivalent, but it's sort of the same idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like.
I mean, if you don't trigger the shuffle, it's just
not
good.
a thing that should be done automatically at all.
Sure. Yeah,
is the big thing. But I watch people do it all the time.
All right, so Mercury picks up a remake here. He still needs to get rid of his overgrown estate.
Yeah, Mercury is a bit thicker, and he doesn't really have much other than the armory going for him that Dan doesn't have at this point. So
Well, he's
Dan
got the
is still in a
Plaza.
good spot. Yeah, he does. But I think Dan is not incredibly far behind, certainly.
No, I don't. I wouldn't say that at all.
No, definitely not. Like,
But-
Dan is fully in control of his deck right now. Yeah, he's got options here.
Yeah, he can either take an armory or he can go ahead and take a plaza.
He can get a Plaza and an Enchantress. Like, remake the silver into a Plaza and buy an Enchantress.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Enchantress attack is looking pretty good considering that Mercury doesn't have a lot of control.
Yeah, I mean, you just want Enchantress for the like 7-card hand at the beginning of your turn. So
Mm-hmm.
good.
But Dan does need more economy and gaining right now than he needs
Yeah.
draw.
Plaza is going to be nice for Dan because he can take advantage of the overdraw.
Mm-hmm.
He'll take an armory soon, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
He just has to get the gains. There goes that toss. It's just silly. What if you wanted to bonfire it or something? I don't. Just
Yeah, it's silly to do it without thinking.
like he could be trashing his 2 coppers here with a bonfire, but
He still could, right? Using the coin token.
that's only one
Oh, I see.
because he discarded the other one.
Yeah.
I think I like playing the armory to top deck a plaza here rather than trashing. But or well, no, you could remake Curse Armory into like Witch and take another plaza and start playing 2 witches. That seems pretty good too.
Yeah, I like waiting on that on the remake. Yeah, just wait till you have 2 curses to trash.
True.
Seems fine.
I mean, materially, Dan's not really that much not really behind anymore.
Yeah,
Hardly.
he's not.
So
With another plaza, Dan can do gain and play.
I think materially Dan's not actually behind at all.
at all.
He really needs to see his witch though, um, this turn to stay on top of the deck.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, at this point, both players would benefit a lot from alternating enchantresses.
Yeah, definitely. The draw's getting a little thin. Although first you just want to take a another witch if you have the 5 for it.
I don't know. I think the window for that is closing, and like both players have remakes.
Yeah, I guess both players are fairly thin at this point.
It doesn't cost a lot because like witch is tolerable draw on this board.
But if Dan draws this witch, he will maintain a nice advantage. If he doesn't, it's a lot murkier. I don't know what else
Guess
he
if
has down here.
I guess one thing you can do here,
Necropolis.
and maybe it's terrible, but um, you can do count and rebuild if as a part of an engine. Um,
Yeah, that's
I
not
don't know if
bad.
that actually does anything, but there's not here a lot of other payloadish stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and the advantage there is you only have to. I mean, you don't have to draw the duchy, right? You just have to get it, and then your rebuild will find it wherever.
yeah, that
So
looks
you just
like great payload to me.
Yeah, and you can top deck like whatever card for your rebuild to skip over. Like,
yeah. And
like you
the
could top deck a province and then play rebuild, call province.
the problem though is that you do need. Well, you don't have to, but it'll work better if you do draw them both each turn, and because otherwise the rebuilds could run out of targets pretty
Yeah,
fast. You can also just buy provinces. That's not the worst thing. Um,
yeah, that's pretty
once
sad
you
here for Dan.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so Dan didn't find his witch.
You should.
I guess he's going for remake stuff now, so he's getting the token. Presumably, and then oh, he can't get an enchantress. Never mind.
He could have, yeah, with the armory, but he really needs the plaza to kick off with the witch next turn.
So, yeah,
And
maybe
taking
the count and rebuild stuff works.
these plazas is good. Like if you win that split 6-4, your deck has a lot more potential than the opponent's.
Yeah.
His deck does have 4 of them already. Now it's up to Mercury to try and draw his Witch, and he also does not.
Now he's not discarding automatically. Would it change?
Now it would
Now
have
the
been correct, probably.
Now we're reaching the point where the Enchantress attack is not so big, but the consistency boost is pretty nice.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like they'll have a Necro or a remake, they're not that concerned about playing or whatever, that
Or
they'll be
just
able to cancel. Or just a
extra
Plaza.
yeah.
Plaza. Yeah. There'll be a lot of flexibility as far as the avoiding the attack.
Yep, the Mercury gets an Enchantress and a Plaza. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if
Dan takes the rest of the plazas.
Yeah, can take that line. Or at least 2 of them. Like, getting 6 is big.
I guess cleaning them out is not really feasible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to trash that last silver with remake.
Well, then he still couldn't do 3.
So he can discard the silver with this Plaza for a coin token.
I could also see just getting an Enchantress down and just being okay with having 5 plazas and being able to have a lot of economy next turn with plaza discards, potentially. I don't know if he has enough treasures to support that much, actually.
Well, if it's overdraw, you just need 1.
Yeah.
I like the idea of getting another Enchantress here, but I think I might prefer to just take the extra Plaza.
The benefit of taking the Enchantress is that he can play it this turn and still draw everything.
Yeah.
And it'll do some damage to Mercury's turn, actually.
Right. And Dan doesn't know that, but it would definitely hurt Mercury.
He can't get the token now, though, if he wants to do the gain.
Yeah. Do you think Dan should hang on to this Necropolis or go ahead and burn it?
Can we answer rules questions?
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I don't know the answer, actually.
I'm pretty sure it does not.
I think it doesn't, but it might. It's hard to tell with Armory's wording because there's not a clear statement of like that you gain it first and then it goes on top of your deck, or because the lose track rule.
I mean, the easiest thing here, of course, is just the friendly thing. Just let him try it and undo if it's not the result he expects. But
it's harder to do, and communication is more difficult like this.
Yeah.
I'm not certain, so.
Looks like
it does. It works.
Yeah. Maybe you can resolve the order
it's like
of the on-game
thing. Summon doesn't work with Death Cart.
Yes. It doesn't work with Death Cart or Border Village. Anything. I guess Summon is because you gain it first and then it later goes on top of your deck, and by the time it's time to top deck, you've lost track. But
yeah,
it looks like the line here is to trash Necropolis to Death Cart and then remake the silver into another plaza.
Yeah.
So that gives Dan 5 plazas. So it does give Mercury the opportunity to grab the last 2 for parity. And then Mercury, if he holds on to the Necropolis, will have one more action available to him.
See, the second Witch is a bit late here. It still will slow down Mercury a little bit, and it'll be useful for Dan. But it won't have huge consequences because Mercury will be able to have a pretty big hand size next turn and trash. but still did it, making Mercury not be able to do things like gain and play. He has to spend time trashing.
I think Dan has this one.
It certainly does look like Dan is in a pretty winning position.
Yeah, I think the witch is. I mean, it could just be bought for the draw, really.
Well, just really he's gonna get decent cash out of this death card for 2 more turns, and or
But
three more turns,
right.
and
He can
Mercury's
armory
not
another
putting
one if he
out that
wants.
much.
Yeah, we'll see what direction Dan goes. Trashing the Necropolis probably means he's not looking at the count, like rebuild payload approach, because he's already pretty terminal loaded now with 2 witches, armory, death cart,
They
remake.
can lose those terminals, right?
Yeah, that's true. He doesn't. Once the curses are gone, he doesn't need the remake.
I mean, he can.
And you can do count rebuild with just 1 extra terminal. It's more
just one
about
more
draw.
terminal, too.
Yeah, yeah. So that's potentially something he can do because he has no, so he's gonna have 5 coins this turn. Absent armory.
There will be. They will have to maybe look out for Death Cart pile out. I'm not sure if they'll have the 3s to do the remakes for that and stuff,
Oh
but
right, yeah. Plaza curses and.
but certainly with the
Wounds.
armories, that's
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah, they're probably
But
more
yeah, the
from
plazas
behind.
and the curses will be gone, and then it's just 4 gains to do the rest.
Right, so if you can get a couple enchantresses or something that you're okay with trashing, you can potentially do it all in a turn.
Yeah.
So this enchantress helps Dan, who can play the survivors as a pig.
Look at those beautiful pigs.
It's the best update there's been all year.
Yeah, I mean it's no sparkle pig, but it's something.
Yeah, they're not shiny, but Steph actually took the time to do it right, so it's still a thing.
I like how it remains a pig when it's
Yeah.
in the in play.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
Unfortunately, the alligator didn't make a appearance for the Haunted Woods notification, but
Yeah, there's no alligator and bat, and I guess bridge troll. I was lazy. It was just a bridge troll, but I guess those other things are more professional for what it's worth, which is nothing.
Nice draw for Dan. Looks like he'll be able to draw up. But he probably doesn't remake this turn. Just waits till next turn when he has 2 curses.
Yeah, and he'll prefer getting an enchantress down this turn, I would think, because he needs the draw. The symmetrical draw to start up.
Yeah, so he could do that right now. Armory for Enchantress, Plaza, then Witch.
Yeah, there's a lot of orders he could play in here.
What could he be thinking about now? So many things to do.
He could also just be thinking about, I've been playing for almost 4 hours right now. I'm trying to win this tournament.
Yeah, his mind's working.
I'm really tired.
We'll hear in the.
He's tired.
His YouTube.
It's like 10 o'clock in where he lives.
Yeah, it's almost 11.
It's not really. It's 11. I know.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating.
You have this vision of people who aren't tired at 11 or 5 in the morning.
I would be tired at 11 too. Not at 6 though. Yeah, this is gonna be Mercury may not even get around to. Well, I guess most of that is like cantrips. I'm just trying to think if he'll get to trash the curses this turn. Probably. But Dan can take the split on the plazas here.
Mercury has 1 copper and 1 silver. And
So Dan's down for the second armory. That signals that he is definitely looking for pile control, which looks pretty reasonable.
He's at least thinking about the old pile out.
yeah,
He didn't really have a 3 though, otherwise it would be in range next turn. If he had a 3.
He can take the last plaza too. That's another option available to him.
So if he buys an armory, like if he, that's kind of hard to draw, but so let's say.
Well, he can just get a third armory here, right? He can armory.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Is he can trash the survivors, get a third armory,
and then Mercury has to green next turn, which is going to be really hard in his deck that doesn't have extra gains in it.
So
or not much by extra gains, at least.
Dan's I guess Dan could dud with that many armories and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he can still. You guys are still talking about getting the Enchantress in play, right?
We're talking about potentially getting a third armory so that he can pile out on death
he can.
cards.
Oh gosh, he's doing something else. But I was thinking he could play the armory, gain an Enchantress, draw it up, death card the survivors, buy an armory. He'd have 3 armories and an Enchantress in play.
Then he wouldn't have the plaza.
Yes, but in any event, instead he makes a remake play, remaking duplicate armory and gaining a witch, which he then drew and played up to give Mercury a lovely -4 VP, which Mercury will have a tough time getting rid of those curses, I think.
Yeah, he's got a lot of curses now.
He does have an Enchantress in play though, which will help a little. But only 1 witch for draw and 3 plazas? 4 plazas.
Yeah, I'm usually greedy. I might have tried to set up the 3 pile, but it's not guaranteed at all.
I wonder if now Dan is looking at, I don't know. Yeah, just buying the plaza seems safe. I don't know. I'm sure he's got a play. Like, I expect Dan is thinking about how he can take advantage of that remake.
There's also an estate pile out, I guess, which is about as easy as the death cart one at this point.
True. If you have enough overdraw, the death cart one also has the possibility of gaining your ruined market that you can use to complete it. But that's kind of risky because you're going to have a big discard pile.
Yeah, you don't really know when that will come or if it will come.
So Mercury draws through almost all the deck. Is that a curse left?
Let's see, what is in the trash?
Yeah, it has to be. Got minus QVP still.
Yeah. So Mercury top decks a death cart with that armory.
So I guess, does Dan have
Dan
enough
just
gains?
has 2 gains.
So he doesn't.
No.
Oh, ruined market is on top though.
Yeah, but that's still not enough. I don't think.
He'd need more money than he has. Yeah. Although once you gain the death card,
maybe he can do it.
Right, if you play 2 death cards, ruined market, and an armory, that gives you enough money in the pile out.
Yeah. If he has the actions to do all that, which I guess he does.
He has plenty of actions. I think the only question is draw.
7 actions.
I just noticed there are only 4 estates left.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think he probably does have the pile out.
Because he's got, I mean, all that stuff at the bottom is draw cards, except for 1. He's got plenty of draw. Yeah, room market on top. He should have it if he sees it.
Yep. Wait. Okay. Well, no. He's got a. If he has to play 2 witches, there's like a 50-50 shot. Because he can't play both witches and have the.
And have the actions.
Oh, there's a. Never mind.
Yeah.
I didn't know the
Plaza.
last card was Plaza. So, no, it's guaranteed. I was thinking, I don't know what I was thinking the last card was. Some nameless nothing. A confusion.
So yeah, he looks like he sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is why Dan is playing and I'm not.
Dan did play this one really nice and clean.
Super clean. He didn't even need to play the other witch. So he just had it all kinds of ways.
Yeah, he didn't need to because the last card was a Plaza, but like I said, in my mind, it was something
else.
Some block.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I imagined, but
you just imagined that it was a card that had no text on it that was helpful.
Right, it did nothing. It was a confusion.
Yeah.
You guys know about confusions?
Yeah. Yep.
Played the witch. Very key. He has no cards left in his hand or his deck. This is a beautiful point. He's gonna sit here and no, he's gonna buy.
He was
Very
pretty
nice
quick.
stand.
All right, and that's a win for Dan Brooks. A 4-3 victory. Great match.
Yeah, was a great
Congratulations
match.
to Dan.
If we could have just fast forwarded through one game, it was a great match.
We came in just a little under 4 hours, and first congratulations to Dan.
Yeah, congrats, Dan. Well deserved. And we didn't know it before, but it turns out you're pretty good at Dominion.
I think we were waiting until we saw the result of this to make that verdict, but we'll say it now. At least while this victory is recent. We'll get back to calling you terrible soon enough.
Good mental fortitude by Dan Brooks to come back from the 3-1 deficit.
He came back from 2 of those because JSH had him too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's had a lot of tough opposition along the way. He's just stayed strong, got the wins. He made a lot of plays which were like safe when he was ahead. I think that's a very conscious minimize